I look back and there's a car accident behind me. Two cars collided to stop from hitting me. You asked me before about my faith. At the time, I had went through college, I went through law school, and I was fully atheist / agnostic. Excruciating. And sometimes the pain was so bad, like it would feel like I'm being attacked by ants, like fire ants.
You forgave somebody who, in the eyes of many, would think she doesn't need it. She took your leg.
Because this is not my power that kept me alive.
Right.
I wasn't the one who did this. And saying like someone else, something else had to be behind, responsible for me being here.
But it was a way for you to find your life.
Broken. As this is happening, I'm like, I can't believe this is my life. I can't believe this is my life. And that was like the first and only time that I went into like a state of depression. Big, huge light thing, and but I think this looks more pro. And
nice. I beat out a multi-billion-dollar.
Yeah, that's what he was telling me. He was telling me that they do like an auction, and like it's like 15 minutes, and he's seen like as much as $2 million raised in those 15 minutes.
Man.
Yeah.
We need to start our own auction. So this is just like interview week for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got a good little practice.
Yeah. Good start before this one.
Absolutely.
Do they put it on like our YouTube channel?
What they're gonna do is they do like an end of the year gala, and so they did the interview with me. They interviewed my mom and my sister, and then after talking with them, they said they want to come to interview us again after like we're eating food and stuff, and they'll do like a family thing, and then they want to come check me out at jiu-jitsu, and they're gonna record me in jiu-jitsu, and then they're gonna put it together and like a piece, and then they're gonna play at the gala before they do the auction.
No way.
So it's going to be like, sort of like a heartwarming piece to try and help raise money. So it was an awesome opportunity I got because I physically I owe them my life. So I got the chance to be able to thank the people that saved me and,
So that's where your surgery happened and everything?
Mm-hmm. Yep, SMH.
So you're going to literally have like a camera crew just following you around for the next like month or so.
No, I mean just two different occasions. They're gonna come to the house and they want to see. I think they're just gonna cut in footage of us eating and having a good time and being together.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna cut in some footage of me doing some jiu-jitsu, hopefully tapping some people out.
So were you doing jiu-jitsu before the accident? No. This is after.
Yes, sir.
When most people already, like myself included, you actually want to right there. Because Nehemiah is in martial arts.
Oh yeah, what they do?
Taekwondo.
Okay.
And because that's a community, ultimately, right?
Absolutely.
Actually, John, are you able to? I forgot to pause Alexa.
Yeah, you got it.
Oh yeah, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I've wanted to join because it is like a community aspect, right? It's a sport, but it's a family.
Absolutely.
And I mean, Nehemiah is still so young, so he's not getting that like communal aspect, but he is getting just like the discipline and stuff like that, which I like for him. But I'm afraid to do it.
What?
Yeah, I don't want to get hurt. No, because like, how old are you?
I'm 38.
38. Okay, so older than, but once we're in our 30s, like our bodies just don't recover the same way.
Man, you're telling me, brother.
Like I'm sore right now because I worked out yesterday. But like if I play basketball, I play basketball every Wednesday. It used to be like the end of the following day, I'd feel the soreness
from basketball.
Yeah, like that's when it was when I was like, or maybe not even feel it at all because I would play basketball all the time. That eventually I'd be fine just because, it was I had the condition to do it. My body would recover. I was young. Now at 32, like I'm sore going home from the gym. So, but I've been scared to do the martial arts because of injury, because of like tearing my ACL, tearing an Achilles. You can let her out, I think, John. Sorry, I got this guy working already.
He's good man.
What was I saying?
You're talking about tearing your ACL?
Yeah, I'm just I'm fearful of trying a sport like that.
Man,
Because when you guys grapple, you guys can tear something, right?
it's different, bro. Because like with jujitsu, like in the beginning, you just learn the lesson that he's gonna teach about passing the guard or how to do this X submission, and then you'll do a couple drills where you actually just practice doing it, and you're doing it at very slow speed with low resistance. Like the person's not trying to fight it; they're trying to let you get in it. And like, say for instance, if it's gonna do like a Kimura where they grab your wrist and they go over the arm and they pull it back like this, it's just so you get the movement down. There's no actual pressure being applied. You know what I'm saying? Unless the person's like, do resist so I can see how it is with resistance. So there's really absolutely zero chance of getting injured. And then at the end, you have the opportunity to roll. And then with the person that you're rolling with, that's just like when you practice the moves or just practice trying to get submissions in general.
Yeah.
You can talk ahead of time, be like, listen, A, I have an injury, or B, I just want to practice this, or C, I just want to go very low speed, low tempo. So it can be as intense as you want it to be, but it could be completely like no injury possible.
But like in basketball, we always have these guys that take it too seriously. They take themselves too seriously. They think they're still in their prime. They think they still have a chance to make it to the NBA. And so literally there's always, with a group of 10, 15 guys, there's always one guy that still takes it too seriously. So he's bumping into you. He's throwing elbows. He's going way too physical. He's not realizing that, okay, bro, we got to go to work the next day.
Oh, yeah.
We're not, like, at the end of the day, my wife's not going to care how many points I scored. She's probably not going to realize that I was gone for 2 hours, right? So I don't know if there was, I'm sure there's guys like that in martial arts, right?
What happens is it starts off, it's just the new people. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, there's a community, and it's very well policed by the upper belts. And what your first instinct is, if you don't know what to do, you just kind of spaz. They call it white belt spazzing, where you just try and freak out and try and tackle the person, try and do everything aggressively.
Yeah.
And they only pair the new people with people of higher belts. So the people with higher belts, they'll tell them, hey, relax. You know what I'm saying? Relax.
Yeah.
And if they don't relax, they'll make them relax.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then they'll recognize, okay, there's a whole different speed.
Yeah.
You know, so it's pretty self-policed. And like, we just had our instructor, Werther, he was saying that for the first time in 4 years, he had to kick someone out of the gym because they were messing around and they were not part of the lesson. They pushed someone down and they put them in submission when the person wasn't trying to roll with them. And then the person got hurt. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, listen, you're not allowed to come back. Your membership is canceled. And he said it's the only time it's ever happened in 4 years. And there were kids, they're like 16, 17-year-old kids.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, for the most part, it's very respectful. It's very well policed. And then like, you can tell like there's a group of kids that are in high school, coming out of high school, that are like, you know, wrestlers, tough guys, and they're pretty much stated themselves with each other. And then there's, you know, people that are, you know, a lot older than myself, out of shape, you know, or that they've been doing it for a long time. So like, it's just so many different levels, but essentially it's very well policed, and it's just about learning, and it's just about, you know.
So it's something from like the top down.
Absolutely.
That what do you call the guy in charge of the headmaster?
It's called a professor, but sometimes you call them coaches, you know, depending. Yeah. You know, because like usually you call them coaches, like, because when we go to competitions, that's what they're doing, is like they're coaching, you know. But
essentially it's up to them to be able to say, take it easy, or partner them with the right person to be able to teach them how to take it easy.
Because like
they got the experience.
There's a brown belt in our class, George, and he's an older guy. I think he's probably in his mid-50s, maybe late 50s, or possibly older. I mean, he's a good shape looking dude. And like, it's one of those things, like, he's so good, you don't recognize how good he is because he looks old, but like, he'll humble you very quickly. You know, as soon as you get humbled one time, you stop trying to be a tough guy because you recognize you're not going to tough your way out of beating someone that's so well skilled.
He's got that old man strength.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
But I mean, martial arts is also not anything to do with anything with size, agility, age. It has to do with technicality, right?
Especially jiu-jitsu. Because like jiu-jitsu was like...
I mean, jiu-jitsu, yeah, that's what you do, right?
Yeah, it was intended for smaller people to be able to have, you know, essentially be able to beat stronger, bigger people.
Right.
you know, and then so it's like it neutralizes your strength and neutralizes a lot of the advantages the other person would have. Because, like, say for instance, myself, I have a lot of physical disadvantage,
Yeah.
but I can close the distance, I can take them down, and then once we're on the ground, we're the same height, you know.
Right.
Like,
And so you started this how many years ago?
no, I started it because my accident was about a year and a half ago, right?
And then how long you've been? So what belt are you now?
I'm still white belt.
So it takes.
It goes white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, and black belt, and each one of the belts take years. You know,
And it's all in discretion of
yeah.
the coach
Mm-hmm.
for him to say like, all right, you're ready to move up to the next belt.
What happens is they do stripes. They'll put stripes on your belt. So I'm a white belt, but I got one stripe,
Mm-hmm.
and then so I've been doing it for about 5 months now, about 5.5, going on 6 months.
Do they do it with the black tape?
No, it's a white belt, and they got a black stripe on it, like a black little portion on it, and they do white tape. So it's the white stripe on the little black background.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, because with Nehemiah, I mean, at his age, I assume it's probably just more because he's 5, right? So it's more so just be at the class for long enough, get enough. So each week they get a stripe. Eventually, if they get enough stripes, they get the ability to move up into like he's testing this week for a white red. So it's like a little red stripe in the middle. But I think it's just he's completed like you have to get 10 stripes on each belt to move to test for the next one. But I think I don't know at what age. I wonder at what age if they stay long enough, which I definitely want to keep them in there. I wonder how long it takes for them to actually start giving out belts based off of strictly performance, strictly just like the coach saying, or they call it master for Taekwondo, or at least that gym they do, for them to say, all right, you're ready to move up to the next belt. I wonder what age they start taking it more seriously.
I know that each school, I mean, at least in jiu-jitsu, each school does it differently. And there are some people that do belts based on how long you've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been there for X amount of years or X amount of months, then and some do tests. Like you said, in Taekwondo, you can test into a different belt, you know, and some people, that's not the way they do it. They don't do it like that. They do it just strictly based on performance, strictly based on sometimes you can be a white belt for 2 years. You can be a white belt for 3 years. And I'm saying, depending on how frequently you go, how, you know, well you've integrated the lessons and how well they see you use it,
Yeah.
then, you know, just strictly merit based, you know.
And how often do you go?
When I first started, I was able to go 5 days a week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then since I started working more,
John, can you raise mine? No.
Since I started working more, I usually go about 3, sometimes 4, but at least 3.
That's a good amount. That's a good amount to be able to. I mean, even 3. I wish I could play ball 3 days a week.
Well, I don't have kids. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. Kids definitely puts kids definitely puts a damper on a lot of extracurricular activities.
100%. But it's cool. I mean, at least in jiu-jitsu too, because there's a bunch of people who go with their kids, and the kids go first.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, and then when I go at 11 o'clock class, and when I go in the 11 o'clock class, the kids are just getting out. So some of the parents are with their kids. They'll go after, and the kids will stay there for their lesson, and then they'll all leave together.
Oh, so you go during the day?
Sometimes I go during the day, like on Wednesdays when we have a worship night at Bayside.
Yeah.
I'll go during the morning.
Gotcha.
Because I can't go at night.
Yeah.
But then other than that, I'll go at nighttime at the 6 o'clock class. And then so they usually have it structured where there'll be 2 different lessons per week.
Mm-hmm.
So Monday, Tuesday, they do the same lesson. Wednesday and Thursday, they do a different lesson. So since we do the men's night on Monday, I don't go at all Monday because I got to work.
Yeah.
So I go Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and then Thursday night, and then Friday night's the best. Because Friday night is just like a Q&A, so you can ask any questions, and we'll do whatever move you guys want to work on. So it's pretty open, and it's like, you know, if you're watching some fights or you're looking some stuff up on YouTube, you get a chance to see, you know, how real it is and how good it works.
Gotcha. And that's where we met, was the Bible study. So were you only going to that men's Bible study that first time when I first met you at the Bible study, that was your first time going?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I gotta tell you, I was like, as soon as you walked in, I was like, I gotta know. And then you shared a little bit of your story of how you lost your leg, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, thank God, 'cause I don't have to ask him. Because my curiosity the whole time, the whole group, I was like, I'm so curious.
Man,
And like for me, like Tay, my wife, she has to hold me back sometimes. She knows what I'm thinking. So her not being there, she would have been like, listen, refrain yourself. But the reason I feel like, I don't know, at that men's Bible study, your openness immediately to like want to share, and then as you started to come more, because I wasn't too, because you've been going how long now? Maybe 2-3 months.
mm-hmm.
So I was maybe 2 or 3 months ahead of you. So I'm fairly new to that group too, and that group already was super vulnerable, super, they were very open, very accepting, very transparent, and very humble in the sense of like how they operate their group, right? And then when you came in, I feel like I kind of like gravitated towards you just because you were somewhat new to the faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you were also so vulnerable, so transparent, so you would share like the convictions that you would have, and I was like, man, I like, that's awesome. And that's why sometimes I would after this Bible study, I would volunteer to like pray for you, or I would go up to you and then say like, with your sister Chada, you know how we both kind of exchange sisters to pray for.
You got Natasha.
Yeah. And I don't know. That's why I was like, man, I gotta have, when I first started putting this together, I was like, I want to see if Raf is willing to do it.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I just want to hear his story. And I started this because with my wife and I mean, so everyone has a podcast, right? Like, so many podcasts out there. And I don't care if it reaches one person, if it reaches 1 million people, but there's definitely for sure like power in our testimonies.
Yes, sir.
But also the intentionality of being able to, like, I'm new to Florida, right? So I have to be intentional on like, how do I make friends? It's hard to make friends at 30, especially like, post 20s, post teens. Like, you have your friends, especially if you grew up in a town that you went to high school with and you continue with. And my 2 best friends are from high school. I still talk to them to this day. But once you have kids and once you start to slow down in life and everyone kind of starts to go their own separate way, and then you move 2,200 miles like we did, how do you make new friends? And so it was not only wanting to make new friends, but also like when my wife and I do it, or I've even done it with Nehemiah, there's intentionality behind like putting on the headphones, having microphones in front of our face, because it's intentional time. There's no distractions. I hear you perfectly. You hear me perfectly. And like just this way of conversating or of conversing is like, it builds a bond between people. I feel like, where it's genuine, and it allows for just being able to grow with somebody. I get to hear your story. If you have any questions for me, you get to hear anything you want from me. And like, it just, each week that goes on and we see each other, it just builds our bond,
Absolutely. And like, I can understand completely that sense of curiosity that you had about my situation. And I see it like,
You're like, I'm curious myself.
Man, but it's funny too, because like you talk about the restraint that you had, and I just see it. The kids don't have that. You know what I'm saying? Kids don't have
No.
it. Say they'll come. I'll see it in the faces at the stores. Say like, what? Or some parent like, he doesn't have a leg. He doesn't have a leg. And they'll call to me like, what happened to your leg? And it's like, I understand that that's like how everybody is, but they just don't have the ability to.
They don't have that filter.
They don't have the filter.
But Nehemiah did it to you last week, right? With your leg.
It happened.
You had your, what do you call it, bionic leg?
It is a bionic leg. It's a prosthetic leg.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
But and Tay and I have talked about this before with him, because obviously, like you said, kids are kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about like, okay, when he's in public and he sees somebody with a prosthetic leg, or he sees somebody in a wheelchair, or he sees somebody even that's like obese, like, okay, like immediately as a parent, you start thinking like, you start looking at his face to see the curiosity on his face to be able to like stop him, shut his mouth. But then Tay and I talked about it. She's the one who brought it up. She was like, let him be curious in a respectful way, right?
Absolutely.
And you can answer this. You can attest to this if this is how you feel. That curiosity is genuine. Why should parents be like mindful of how their kids approach it, or should they let them just be curious?
I mean, for me, I'm a different breed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because
you're much nicer than
you know,
most.
like I'm not in any way. And I think obviously it has to do with what happened.
Mm.
You know, because like say for instance, if there are people who've lost it due to diabetes.
Yeah.
And saying lost like diabetes, it's not the same thing. There may be some personal responsibility or personal shame involved, and may bring up bad situations. But for me, it was such a sudden tragic situation that it's like I have another friend that I met through when you go to get a prosthetic, they're called the prosthetist, right? And she connected me with him because she's like, he's not doing so well with it, and you got such a positive attitude about it, so I want you to talk to him. And his circumstance was his was a motorcycle accident,
Same like yours.
same, but he lost control of his bike and he ran into a pole.
Oh, okay.
He ran into a sign. So like for me, it wasn't the same thing. For him, he has like a sense of personal responsibility because he was the one that lost control of his bike. So it's kind of a different thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But for me, like I don't mind anybody asking me questions or even making comments. But it goes both ways too, because like I went to a jiu-jitsu competition. And after every single time I'm competing, everyone's like, "Oh, you're such an inspiration. You're so motivational." And this little kid runs up to me. He's like, "You're a hero." He said, "You're a warrior." He's like, "You're a warrior." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And that's just straight no filter too. So it feels good like that.
Yeah. Okay. So since we're here, before you share your testimony and like what happened with the accident and stuff like that, first of all, what's your full name? Who were you before the accident? Where were you in life as far as faith goes, just happiness goes? Where were you prior? And then bring us to like to where you are today, I guess.
Gotcha. Well, my name is Rafael. I have two last names because in Puerto Rico, you take your dad's last name first, just like your last name is. What's your last name? Justiniano, right? So my name is Rafael Ayala, but then I keep you put on your mom's maiden name,
okay,
which happens to be Villalba, right?
Okay.
So it's it's a tongue twister for a lot of people, but so it's Rafael Ayala Villalba, and
doesn't even sound Puerto Rican. It sounds like almost like when you say it fast, it sounds like Middle Eastern almost.
I can see that. But like it's spelled Villalba, but the two L's in Puerto Rico make like a j sound.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Way to confuse people, Puerto Rico.
That's right. No joke.
I already struggle enough with it with spelling as it is.
That's how we do it. There's nothing easy over there. But so for me, my personal situation was I had recently, I can't say recently, but I graduated law school, right? I went out of high school. I didn't even graduate high school.
Mm-hmm.
I went to 4 years, and then I failed out of English because I just was not going to classes. I was just skipping school and having fun and trying to impress my friends and just partying all the time. And then instead of going back to finish my degree, I just went and got a GED and then went to community college. Mm-hmm. So I went to community college at SCF. And I went for a semester, didn't go to classes, and I ended up having to drop. And then I did it again. And I was trying to be a little more serious, but then my car died right before midterms. So I had to just drop my classes. And then so I had 2 semesters, 2 different times where I would try to go to community college. I didn't do it. And then I was just serving tables. And I had this guy that was working with me. His name was Robert, and he was like 63 years old, and he had a bad back and a bad knee, but he was still working because he couldn't collect his Social Security yet. And I was like, man, I don't want that to be me.
Yeah.
And I'm saying I want to be sitting there in pain, struggling, just having to go through the motions, put on a fake smile for people that you kind of have disdain for. Because I was working at a country club, and there's all these people that are very wealthy, entitled, and may sometimes complain about some stuff that seems very small to someone who's got a bad back and bad knee. So I changed my mindset. I was like, I want to go to school and I'm going to do the best I possibly can. and I'm going to do all the extracurricular things I could possibly do. And they had like someone was doing a presentation about how to be a good student. So I went to that presentation, and he's like, treat this like a job, treat this, like the most important thing possible. Sit in the front seat, sit in the front row, ask questions, go after class and talk to your professors and let them know that you care about what they spent their life studying. You know what I'm saying? Take that extra step. So, and then he said, find people that are doing things the way you want to do it, and then spend as much time with them as possible. So there was this one girl, Jamie Worley, and she was the president of the student government and president of the International Honor Society. So I was like, I just want to be around her. I just want to see what she does. And she's like, just come to the meetings. Just come to the meetings. Just show up. So I showed up to all the student government meetings I could, showed up to all the International Honor Society meetings I could. And it's one of those things that you had to get a certain GPA in order to get into it. So I started just studying as hard as I could. And once you start really engaging and showing up and asking teachers questions, you have to know what you're asking. You have to actually do the reading, and you have to actually participate. So I started doing really well, and then I became vice president of student government, and then a position for the officers opened up for Phi Theta Kappa after I got accepted, and it was like a 3.5 GPA to get in. And then so I took a secretary position. And then once the president, Jamie Worley, left, she's like, you should run for president. So I got the opportunity to run for president, and I became president of the International Honor Society. And then you get a lot of different opportunities to go travel and to be an ambassador, I'm saying, for your school and learn different things. So I just became very invested in academic success. And then so I did very well there. And then I went to University of Tampa, and I finished my bachelor's degree in University of Tampa. And then from University of Tampa, I applied and I got into FIU Law School in Miami. So I went to law school for 3 years. And then so after law school, I had a crazy situation that happened in my second year of law school. I got in an accident going from my mom's house here in Sarasota down to Miami. And I was on the interstate, and I don't know how it happened.
This is on your bike?
No.
This is a car?
This is a car.
Okay.
This is a car I was driving. This was like in 2017.
So this is 2017, the car accident, but all the stuff that you mentioned in college, this is obviously after high school, what, 4 or 5 years removed? Like all that stuff that you mentioned, where it was like you met the right people, you put yourself in the right position.
Yeah. And
so by that time, by this 2017, you already had your bachelor's. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to Miami.
Yes, sir.
To get because you got into law school. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so it was my second year, and I was driving back after Labor Day, and I don't know how it happened. Like there was no other car involved. They said that I could have hydroplaned, but I don't remember it raining. But eventually I slammed into like a median. Yeah. And I was with no recollection to my own that they brought an ambulance and they tried to airlift me out of there. But I guess I was being too combative, and they took like 4 or 5 people trying to get me in the ambulance, and I wouldn't let them do it.
You don't remember this?
No memory. And then so they took me to the ambulance to the hospital, and I woke up, and I guess they had to medically induce me because my brain was swelling.
Into a coma?
Into a coma. So they medically induced me into a coma. So I wake up, and they pulled me out of my apartment. They unenrolled me in school because the amount of brain trauma that I suffered, they thought that I was going to be severely cognitively impaired, and they thought that I could potentially be blind. Jeez. And like it was a horrible situation. And luckily I had such a good group of friends, and the whole school, I mean, because I'm someone that I like to get to know everybody. Yeah. And I'm saying that the librarians, the janitors, everybody.
You're intentional.
Absolutely. And so I had like a big community of people that they got these bracelets that said like Raf Strong on it, and they had raised a lot of money for myself. Mm-hmm. And they had friends that bought like an Airbnb to put my family in there because they live in Sarasota, and it was around the clock, seeing how it's going to be. So in the hospital, I got out, and I come to, and my first words like, I need to go to school. Like I need to get to class.
Hustler.
You know what I'm saying? 100%. And they're like, I don't think, because they unenrolled me. So
how long were you in the coma for?
About 2 weeks.
where you're completely, basically, you're sleeping just so you're not like, so a coma is basically they put you in there just so you don't exert yourself too much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just so your brain has time to, lose the swelling
Mm-hmm.
and go back to like a normal state.
Yep.
And in that time, they thought potentially you could die.
Absolutely. I mean, they had to drill holes in my skull. Like if when I get my hair cut short, you'll see like I have 2 holes right here, and then like I have like a big, it looks like almost like a Nike check where my skull was fractured in the back.
And you don't remember at all what happened.
Man, not only do I not remember, but what I remember didn't happen. Like what I remember getting in an accident. I remember driving to the hospital. Clearly, I remember this so clearly. I remember going to the hospital, going to the front counter where you check in and tell them telling them I was involved in a serious car accident and I need help right now. And then I remember getting put on a table and getting sent back. And I was telling this to my sister, and she's like, "That didn't happen." I was like,
way.
and she's like, "I'm like, what do you mean?" She's like, "Where's your car?" I'm like, "It's parked in the parking lot." And she's like, and then she looked at my mom like, should I tell him? And she shows me a picture of my car was demolished. The front end was smashed. The windshield was smashed out. The airbag got deployed, and it was soaked in blood.
My gosh.
And it was like, I'm looking at this. It's like, how is this possible? So I don't have very good experiences with cars or motor vehicles. But so
the fact that you're still driving is a miracle in
100%.
itself.
And then,
but I didn't even know all this. I thought you were talking about the motorcycle accident. So you've survived 2 major life potentially ending.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right. And
I have so many questions
so
already.
I had to get out, and then so they unenrolled me, and I had I had like a breathing tube in. So when I pulled it out, I could barely talk. I had a very raspy voice, and I couldn't smell or taste anything. And like I had to essentially tell the teachers that I want to go back to school.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, you got enrolled and I was like, I want to have an opportunity to demonstrate the fact that I can still go to school."
Right.
So they sent the dean of students to come to the Airbnb that I was staying at to essentially tell me, you're not going to be a student anymore.
Yeah.
And then I was able to convince her and explain to her that I'm fully cognitive, that I have the ability to retain the information that I've learned, and I want to go back and continue. So she went back. She's like, "Well, I have to talk to the rest of the deans of the school." And after that, she conversed with them. She said that ultimately I'm good to go. And then while I was recovering, I had a friend come, and she was keeping me up to speed because like law school is extremely intense.
I can imagine.
It's extremely intense. So if you're not allowed to miss X amount of days.
Yeah.
Or else they'll, just because of the ABA, the American Bar Association rules, you can't miss a certain amount of credit hours. You know what I'm saying? During the days during the class.
Yeah.
And then so they had to make an exemption so I can continue. And then I was able to continue. I was able to graduate my class. And then so, I got to get past that. And then after when I came back, I finished what I had to do. And then each year's progressively easier. So the 3rd year, I started messing around. I started slacking off. And I started hanging out with the wrong kids, because before I was like super straight and no smoking anything, no drinking anything. I was just like, I was about my business.
Yeah.
And I come back here and all my friends are still smoking and drinking, and they'd pass me things. I'm like, I know you can't remember, what I'm saying, but like I don't do it. And I'm saying so, but then I came back and then I started messing around, and then I graduated. It's good, but then what happens is after you graduate, you have to take the bar exam.
Yeah.
And the bar exam is like extremely, extremely insane. Like it's like it's a 12-hour test.
Mm-hmm.
You have like 2 3-hour sessions one day, and then you take 2 3-hour sessions the next day. And it's like, basically, here's what you've learned in law school. You have to be able to prepare to do that. And then all the other stuff that you didn't cover, so it's insane.
But is it open book?
No.
Oh, it's not?
No, sir.
So it's all memory.
It's all memory.
No phones.
No
like
phones.
You can't even bring your phone in the room, right?
You can't do it. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Jeez.
And then so
I honestly, I fell asleep during my SAT. During the written portion.
I didn't even take my SAT.
No?
No.
I mean, I was You know what an IEP plan is?
Uh-uh.
Individual Education Program. Since
Okay.
5th grade all the way to high school. Like I was on one of those. So I basically got a pass to be able to not take the SAT and get into basically, I don't know. I don't think just any school or every school, certain schools. So because I was part of that program, I didn't have to take it. But I have a question going back to you being in a coma. When you were in a coma, could you, because I've heard this before, people say like, I could hear everybody around me. No,
Nope.
no, it was just a long nap for you.
It was a long nap for me. It was a long nap for me. And
Did you wake up rested?
No, I mean, like, cause I woke up, I was awake before I was awake. You know what I'm saying? Like, apparently I kept trying to, I had a breathing tube,
Yeah.
and I had a feeding tube, and I kept pulling them out. And so I woke up, I was restrained. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Because
okay.
I kept pulling the tubes out. You know what I'm saying? So I kept trying to like get out of the tube, and I kept trying to sneak out. I kept trying to leave.
And you were asleep?
Like I was awake. Like I was technically awake, but I don't remember any of it.
Okay, okay.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I guess it's
It's like a
probably
bad case of sleepwalking.
I think it was just because all the medication they had me on, and I wasn't able to remember it. Like I kept trying to sneak out because I kept telling them I had to go to school.
So what were your injuries with that?
It's just traumatic brain injury, right?
So
I
just from you didn't break any bones?
just my skull. You know what I'm
So
saying?
you broke your skull,
Yeah.
and that's where you had the swelling,
Yeah.
and that's why they induced you.
Yep. And then so I couldn't taste or smell anything, and they said that it could come back within 2 years or it might not come back.
You have it?
I got it back.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I got it back. Thank God. And then and unfortunately what happened was there was a lot of scar tissue that developed in the front my frontal lobe.
Yeah.
So then I developed epilepsy.
Okay.
So then, I'm sitting there, I'm on the phone with my mom, and then she hears the phone drop and she hears a bunch of banging and me making like a crazy noise.
Like you're convulsing on the
I'm
floor.
convulsing on the floor. And
What is epilepsy again?
it's when you have multiple seizures.
Okay.
I'm saying because you can have a seizure and not be epileptic, but if you have more than one, then you're susceptible to having multiple seizures. So that's just what epilepsy is.
But then you go a certain amount of time without having a seizure.
Mm-hmm.
Then do they say that you don't have that anymore, or you still
No.
always have it?
Yeah.
And you're susceptible potentially to it.
Yeah.
But you're driving, so you haven't had one for a while.
No, absolutely no. Because what happens is, after I had the first seizure, I didn't remember. Obviously, because you don't remember anything when you have a seizure. I just remember a friend of mine. She lived across the street from me, and my mom, she knew her, and so she called her and told her to come get me and take me to the hospital. So she took me to the hospital. I vaguely remember doing it. I vaguely remember going to the hospital, and then it happened again when I was in the library. And after that was the second time, then they gave me medication, and they said once you take this medication, you should be fine. And I don't like taking pills,
Yeah.
so I didn't take them.
Mm.
And then I was volunteering because you have to do X amount of pro bono hours while you're in law school, and we did it's like a legal aid clinic, and I went to legal aid clinic, and then when I got out, there I was going to my car, and my friend took my keys. I was like, "What are you taking your keys for?" I was like, "I'm driving." I was like, "For what?" He's like, because you had a seizure. And I thought he was talking about because I've had a seizure in the past, but I didn't know that I had a seizure when I was in the office.
And you came back didn't go to the hospital.
And I had no clue. And he was walking around. He's like, "Where'd you park?" And I didn't remember where I parked. And I told him I had a parking ticket. So he kept walking to all the parking attendants at different parking lots saying, like, "Do you know what this parking lot is? My friend had a seizure." And I was like, "Why do you keep saying that? Like, why do you keep saying that?" He's like, "Because you just had a seizure." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Look at your shirt." And because when you have a seizure, my jaw locks up,
Yeah.
and I'll bite my cheek, and then I'll start drooling, and there'll be like
Blood.
drool and blood on my shirt. And I looked down, I was like, "Oh my God." So then I started taking my medication.
Yeah.
And then when I take my medication regularly, I have no seizures.
This is a lot.
It is. So then I graduated law school, and then so I kind of had this sense that because they have bar prep classes where it's like a 12-week class where it's structured where you're just doing every different subject at different times, and then you do like little mini tests and stuff. But ultimately, I was like, I have the book. I'm going to teach myself. I'm not going to take the class.
Yeah.
And then I failed the bar exam. So I was like, all right, well, I know what I did last time. I'm going to do it differently this time. And then I failed the bar exam. And then I was like, okay, I know how to do it now. And then I got within 1.5 points of passing.
Jeez.
But I failed it again. And then I failed it again. And I failed it again. And I failed it again. And the last time, my friend, he got a job with the bar prep company because it costs like $2,000 to take one of these courses. So he got
the course, not the test.
Just the course. The test costs thousands of dollars too.
Does it?
Because if you do it on time, it only costs like $700 because it's like a $450 fee and then $125 to be able to use your computer. You know what I'm saying? Because they have an essay portion of it. It's a 3-hour essay portion. So unless you want to write it out by hand, you have to bring your computer. That costs money.
Yeah.
And then I never did it on time. So I have fees. So several times it'd be like $1,100 for me to take it. So I'm taking this $1,100 class. It takes like 12 weeks to study for. They don't give you your results back for 6 weeks. And then when you get your results back, it just says pass or fail.
And they don't tell you point wise.
They'll tell you point wise.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll tell you point wise. Like a bunch of times I was within 1 to 1.5 points from passing.
Which would you rather have failed by like miserably? Because like to get so close,
man, I don't know.
By 1.5 points, or did it give you enough hope to be like, all right, I'm that close?
That's what it was. I mean, I was like, oh, come on, I got this.
Because I think about it. I mean, this is a bad comparison because I'm nowhere near being able to take the bar exam, but when comparing it to basketball, if I'd rather lose, like if it was an overtime game, I'd rather lose by 50 and get blown out than to lose by 1 point.
Man.
But I get how it can also, you're a very positive person.
Yeah.
So to be able to think like I got that close, okay, let's take it again. So you took it 7 times?
I took it 7 times.
You passed in 7?
Passing the 7.
That's a good number.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a good number.
Well, it all worked out because I said my friend, he got a job at the Bar Prep Corporation. So out of law school, he started working with the bar prep. And he's like, I got you on a free course. So
that's huge.
It was incredible. It was huge.
By that time, what test were you on?
That was the 7th.
Okay, so the last one you got the free test prep.
From Kaplan. Bar
Shout out
Prep
to Kaplan.
Shout out to Kaplan. Yeah, so I took the bar prep class and then I passed it. So then I passed, and like there's a bunch of stuff that I should have been doing beforehand. Like there's an ethics exam I could have taken, and you have to ultimately get cleared by the bar. So you have to take like this extensive, it's like an FBI background check. So it takes a long time. So I was kind of like, I'm not going to do any of this stuff until I pass the bar because who knows if I'm even going to pass it. So I passed the bar, and then I signed up to take the ethics exam. I'm studying for the ethics exam, and I'm working at a country club again. I'm signed up, and I'm studying to take this exam. And I'm working, and then I'm working 2 jobs. And then I got in another car accident. This one was this had nothing to do with me. I stopped at a light, and a car slams into the car behind me, pushed that car into me, and pushes me into a car in front of me. So my car gets like completely totaled. It still runs, but it's demolished. And it was the car. What happened was they raised money for me when I was in the first accident in law school, and I bought that car.
So this is the car.
This is the car
that they raised money for.
Yeah. So I bought that car.
Hopefully, was it a different car, like a different brand, different?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
It was a Dodge Dart. And I thought it was so cool. And so I'm sitting there. The car gets demolished. The back end is completely smashed. The front end is off, and I'm just rolling with it. I'm just driving it, until it falls.
You kept it?
I kept it because what happened was since that car.
Well, because here in Florida, you also don't need stickers.
Yep, they don't do inspections.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's everyone from up north is like, I can't believe that you drive that car.
Yeah, because in Massachusetts, where we're from, where we were living last, where I'm from, you can't. They're so strict on the inspections. You can't have your car lifted. A lot of Puerto Ricans, especially, we like to have. Well, I didn't. I never liked them. The drop Honda Civics with the super loud. No, none of that stuff would have passed. No window tints. You can have like legal, I think it was like 35%. People always did it, 25%, 20% or 5%. I always did 20 because I liked the way it looked.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very strict up there. So you're driving over here with a Dodge Dart with the back booty swing to the left.
Smashed out. What the trunk wouldn't. I had to like wire it closed.
Jeez.
And then so the front. What happened was since I was at the light, my foot was on the brake. So there's a mechanism in the brake that got broken. So the brake would work, but it wouldn't disengage. Like so, the light would always stay on. Right.
The emergency brake?
I'm saying the brake lights. So I'm sitting at the light with my foot on the brake. Once the car got smashed, it caused something in that braking mechanism to make it so it wouldn't go back up.
So it's always pressed down.
So it's always engaging the brake lights.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying.
Right.
Gotcha.
So then my car battery would die. And then I got another battery. And then so what I had to do is I got out of the car, I'd open up the hood, and then I would just pull out the battery.
Every time.
Every single time. I just rolled with it like that. Right. So I was rolling with it like that for like probably like 6 months.
But did you get injured from that accident?
No, I didn't have any injuries. Other than my pride. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm driving around and it's demolished. It's so, while I'm in the car, I can't see it, so it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But as soon as you get out, it's hard. It's hard getting girls in a car like that.
Definitely is.
But it works. And the ones that you get in the car, they're keepers. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not with me for my car.
Yeah.
So I'm driving the car, and because it gets annoying to have to unhook the hood every time to pop the hood, so I kept it almost off. You know what I'm saying? Like I would pop it and then it'd stay disengaged, so then I could just lift it from there and then take it off.
But that's not dangerous?
Well, what happened was I was driving and I didn't put it down all the way.
Yeah.
And I'm driving and the hood comes up and smashes the windshield.
Jeez, man.
The hood comes up and smashed the windshield. It was a horrifying situation. And then so I got this windshield that the insurance won't cover fixing it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's gonna cost me like $400 or $500 to replace the windshield, and the car's not worth it at that point. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, you know what? I just ended up scrapping it for $600.
That's funny that the windshield is like the final straw. You're like, you know what? This piece of crap.
It was demolished. I couldn't see out of it. So for me, before it was like, everyone else has to look at it, but inside the car, it runs just fine.
Yeah.
So then once the windshield got demolished,
It wasn't working for you.
it wasn't working for me. And at the time, I was paying like $900 a month in rent, and I had a bunch of bills and stuff. So I was working 2 jobs. At that time, I was working at a breakfast place serving tables, and then I was working at a comedy club, McCurdy's Comedy Theater, at night. And then so I didn't have enough money to get a new car, and I started looking at motorcycles on Facebook Marketplace. So I see they have this. There's like a 2007 Suzuki GZ250, and it looked like a really nice bike. It looked like a really nice bike, and it was like $1,100.
That's the thing with bikes is that you can't always, especially with the street bikes, the crotch rockets, you can't really always tell the year. They look pretty similar from year to year.
This one wasn't a crotch rocket. It was like a classic bike. You know what I'm saying? Like if I showed you the picture, you probably might have seen them around.
It's like a Harley looking kind of.
Yeah, kind of. But it's a small because it's a 250, so it's a small engine. So I had a motorcycle before. My stepdad had a motorcycle before.
So you've been around them.
I've been around him for a little while. My stepdad, he passed in a motorcycle accident.
Oh, okay.
He was driving to work, and a car went and took a U-turn the wrong way and hit him. And he flew, and he didn't break a bone in his body except for his head. He didn't have his motorcycle on. Al McKinnon, rest in peace. And since he didn't have his motorcycle on, his brain swelled.
You mean his helmet?
His helmet, excuse me. Since he didn't have his helmet on, his brain swelled too much, and he wasn't able to be resuscitated. So I was under the misapprehension that as long as I have a helmet on, I'm going to be fine. Right? So I get the motorcycle, I break the news to my family, and let them know, hey, I got a motorcycle.
Yeah, because I'm sure they're traumatized from what happened. At what age did that happen that he passed away from a motorcycle accident?
He passed away when I was 20.
Okay, so and then you got this bike at what age?
36.
Okay.
So
16 years, but still a traumatizing event because of everything that you got the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I get the motorcycle, and You know, my girlfriend, she loves it. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, it's irresponsible, but it's a blast. Like,
Yeah.
it's so much fun riding.
I can imagine.
It's just too much fun. I mean, going to the store, doing anything. Like, I had so much fun riding it.
Yeah.
And then so the day that it all happened was, I was working at McCurdy's, and I was on an on-call shift. So normally at a certain hour, they text you and say who's working tonight.
What's that? What's McCurdy's?
McCurdy's Comedy Theater. It's the only
Oh, the one here in downtown?
one
Okay.
there in downtown. It's an awesome establishment. So I was working there, and then I didn't get the text that I had to work that night.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, fine. I guess I don't have to work. So I was at the gym, and I just stayed at the gym longer. And I came home, and then I get a call from my boss, and she's like, where are you? And I was like, I'm at the house. And she's like, why aren't you here? And I was like, I didn't get any text. And she's like, well, we need you in here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right. It was only like 15 minutes away.
What time is this?
It was probably like 7:30, but it was during the summertime, so it was still
Light.
still bright outside. It was a beautiful summer day.
Yep.
And then so 15 minutes, I had to be in there in a half an hour, and I was like, I got nothing but problem. I mean, no problems. So I get on the bike and I'm driving. It's a clear day, bright out. There's like little to no traffic on the road, and I'm driving and I'm going north from my mom's house, which is pretty close to here. It's like right over there on 41, probably like a mile south of Clark. And I'm driving north, and I'm driving through an intersection on Proctor,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm on the left of the two lanes going north, and I'm driving through a green light, and then a car that's stopped right here, that's pulling up across from me. It looks like they're gonna stop at the light, but they just run right through. They run right through it, and they hit me, and it was a terrifying situation. It was a terrifying situation because I can see the car coming. There wasn't anything I could do because they turned really quick and they hit me. So I fly, right? I fly off the motorcycle, and I'm just in the air, and then I come crashing to the ground. And I hear a snap, and I feel the most excruciating amount of pain possible. It was insane, just overwhelming amount of pain. And if I was under the misapprehension that your body would go into shock,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't experience it, but it was just overwhelming. And I looked down, and I could see I had a pair of black pants on, and pardon for the graphic detail, but my femur had snapped through my leg and through the pants. So I'm looking down, and I could see my severed
Jeez.
leg with my blood-soaked femur staring at me, and just a river of blood pouring out onto the concrete. And I'm overwhelmed with pain. I see my severed leg just gushing blood, and with the rate of the blood coming out, you think that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
So in that moment, you're thinking to yourself, I could die.
in that moment, all I could do was, in order to alleviate the pain or to distract myself from the pain, I just had to say, just breathe. And I just try to stay as calm as possible, and I just try to breathe. I was like, just breathe.
Okay, I'm trying to paint this picture in my mind because I take Proctor every day to go to work, right? Are you talking about, so Proctor you can turn left or right once you reach 41 on Proctor.
Mm-hmm.
I turn right to go to work. You can go straight to go to the landings.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm going.
You're going north past Proctor.
I'm going north on 41, crossing Proctor. Like once you get to Tamiami Trail,
Yeah.
you can go north to
Yeah.
get to downtown.
Yep.
That's the way I was heading. So they were heading south on Tamiami Trail,
And they were turning left onto Proctor.
turned left onto Proctor.
So in your middle lane,
Mm-hmm, the inside lane.
okay, and they don't see you, so they turn.
They turn, hit me right on the left side. I fly, come crashing down.
Does any of that happen in slow motion for you?
It seemed like it was in slow motion. I mean, like it seemed like it was in regular motion. Like it just slow in the fact like there's nothing I could have done to avoid it.
Yeah.
But I just see it coming right at me. I hit it and I fly.
So they hit you directly on your leg?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was on my leg. I know I just felt the impact, and then I flew.
Is that what broke your leg, or you landing?
I think it was a landing.
Did you get launched?
Yes. Yes, I got launched, and as I got launched, I don't know exactly how I landed.
Yeah.
I just remember getting launched, smacking into the ground, sliding, and saying because it's not easy to stop.
No.
I'm sliding, and then I look down and I see the situation.
How fast you think you were driving?
I think I was going like normally I go about about 5 miles over the speed limit.
Yeah. And I think what's like 40-ish there?
Yes, that was I think it's 45. So I was
Okay.
going about like 47,
Yeah.
48 miles per hour.
Do you know from where you ended up stopping sliding? I'm just trying to visualize it because I take that every day.
You know, I mean, I don't remember exactly how far it was. I mean, I know I would probably say like 50 feet.
Jeez.
You
Okay.
know.
All right.
So I'm sliding, and I mean, I'm looking down after I slid and after I landed, and I'm just overwhelmed by an excruciating amount of pain. And I lay back. I just lay back and I just start to breathe. I just keep just trying to focus on the breathing. And because I was a runner,
Mhm.
right? I used to love to run, and I'd run even when I'd work 2 jobs. I'd run in the middle and in between them. I'd run about 3.5 miles a day,
Damn.
right? And so like I know like there's times in which I've got a cramp, or there's times in which for some reason like I'll like by either my leg or I'll get a little cramp in my side. I just know he's got to breathe it out. He's got to breathe it out, and it's gonna go away. So just stay calm and breathe it out. So
But this one's a little different.
it was very different. It was very different. So I'm sitting there and I just lay back. I still have my helmet on, and I just feel someone squeezing really hard on my leg. I just feel like an extreme amount of pressure, and which hurt even worse. And they're like, "You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay." And I was just trying to stay calm. And then I remember that I hear the ambulance. A car. I look back, and there's a car accident behind me. Two cars collided to stop from hitting me, because I'd flown and they were coming in, and they smashed into each other to stop themselves from hitting me.
When you fell off the bike, did you stay on the same side of the street, or did you fly over to the?
No, I was on the same side of the street.
So the cars behind you, obviously because of what happened, they're also going fast too, so they collide. Okay.
So they collide. I look back and I see that there's a collision, and then I hear and see the ambulance, and then I get lifted. They put me onto like a hard plastic thing, and I get lifted onto the gurney, and they lift me up into the ambulance, and I'm just overwhelmed by pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember very vividly telling the people, just please God put me under, please God put me under, because I was just excruciating amount of pain. And then that's all I remember from the actual accident.
Do you remember? Did you ever get a chance to meet, or do you know the person that tied whatever?
The tourniquet was applied by a police officer.
Off duty?
And no, he was on duty. He was on duty.
But they just got hit. They got there fast.
I don't know if there was a call or if they saw it, but they were there pretty much right after I got hit.
Yeah.
And so his name is Deputy Josh Snow. And I found out a long time afterwards, probably like 6 months later, what his name was. I didn't know at the time. I just knew that there was a police officer that did that. And fast forwarding, after I got out, I went to the prosthetist at OPC, and she was, because what happens is, I don't know if you can see. I don't know how far you can see. Can you see like below my waist? Yep. Right. So like I ended up what happened as a response to the accident, I had some femur. Right. There's still some femur.
Yeah.
But because of the road rash and because of how severe the injury was, I had to have like 5 surgeries while I was in the hospital, and they had to keep taking more.
Because of infection?
Well, the bone was shattered, and there was gravel. I mean, there was dirt inside the wound. So the tissue became, I think, necrotic. It was like the term where you can't get blood flow to it.
Yep.
So they had to just keep taking it off.
So at what point are you?
I don't have any femur left. I don't have.
So basically hip bone, and then
that's it.
Okay.
Like I looked at the X-ray, and it was horrifying. It was like, because I woke up and I had this huge mass. First of all, when I woke up, I remember exactly what happened,
Yeah.
and I looked down to see if I still had my leg. I looked down to see if I still had my leg, and it looked like there was something under the blanket, and it looked kind of like at the end where I could see where my foot was or should have been, and I touched the blanket and I could feel there was nothing there.
And at that point, they've already gone up.
At that point, I still had probably like, it probably went about mid quad, like mid thigh.
Jeez, man.
And then so it was swollen. It was a huge mass, but it's all bandaged up so I couldn't see it.
Yeah. But you're waking up essentially to no leg.
I'm
Life changed immediately.
100%. And I see my mom and my sister there, and my first instinct was to apologize to my mom.
Jeez, man.
I just remember being like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And she's like, it's okay. Like you trying to console me. Essentially, like I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't my fault, but essentially I knew that I shouldn't have been driving the motorcycle. Like I knew that I should have been driving the motorcycle. And I just woke up with a sense of guilt that like she's going through, my family's all going through this right now. And it's all my fault because I wanted to drive around on a motorcycle. And I just remember that guilt being like the first thing that I remember, more so than like the loss of my leg. I just remember feeling so bad for my mom and my sisters, who I have 3 sisters. I have the best mother you could imagine and amazing sisters. And they were just there, and I could just see, they could feel my pain. I could see their pain.
Yeah.
And it was so much. It was so much. So I apologized to them, and they consoled me. And just, I started trying to figure out, it's a process. It's a process because, like I said, I used to run every day. So I'm a very active person. And I'm a high energy guy.
Yeah.
And I'm always running. I had 2 jobs, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a friendly guy. I like going around, moving around, I like dancing, you know what I'm saying? Like, I like being a life of the party, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have a good time everywhere I go. Right. So then and now I'm stuck in the bed. And in excruciating pain. I was in excruciating pain because not only did I lose my leg, but then I had a lot of road rash all on my right side. My right side, my right arm, my right leg. It was just chewed up, charred.
For road rash, you know how when you get burned, it's like first degree, second degree. Do they have that same level for road rash?
I don't know.
Like to what layer?
I mean, like you can just see like the remnants of the scar tissue.
Yeah.
But when I first got it, it was just raw. Like it was just completely. It was all bandaged.
Yeah.
But when they changed it, I could see it was just raw.
Almost like down to the muscle.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't quite down to the muscle, but it was brutal. And then so there's a lot of neurological pain, not even just the actual pain itself, but then the muscle tissue starts seizing up and tensing up. It's sort of like a Charlie horse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your body at that point is having to go through 1 day prior, sending blood all the way down to your toes. Now it has to, I mean, I don't know how they do it surgically, but now it has to stop at where they cut off and essentially reroute everything, right?
Yep. And it's, it's incredible. It's a testament to this. There's so many things like, the fact that, and a question you asked me before about my faith. At the time, I had went through college, I went through law school, and I was fully atheist/agnostic. Like I had figured it out. I had figured out that God didn't exist.
Yeah. And
that people just chose to believe in God because it makes them feel better.
Yeah.
Right. And that they're scared. They're scared of what's going to happen after they die. And they couldn't accept the fact that when you die, that's just it. And I just felt that people just chose to believe because it made them feel better, or made them feel better about, losing loved ones. And it's like, well, they're in heaven now.
Yeah.
And so I had fully subscribed to agnosticism. At first I was fully atheistic, but then I was like, there's a possibility of something being out there. I just don't have proof. And the way that my mind worked as someone that was a political science major and someone that was in law school, like there's very rigorous standards for evidence. In order for something to be introduced into a courtroom, it can't be this person said that. It has to be based on a certain foundation of truth.
Yeah.
And reliability. So if someone told me I saw Jesus, I saw this and that, it's like, well, that's what you saw, but I didn't see it. So I don't know.
Right.
And so that was the standard of proof that I was holding to. It's like a beyond all reasonable doubt, and I didn't have enough proof. I didn't have enough proof, and that's in order for me to believe something, I had to have proof.
And this is also after your first accident. You continued to be atheist and agnostic, right? After your second accident.
Yeah.
And was it like, you know how there's people who, did you find people who had faith or who were Christian, who had a relationship with Christ, to be like annoying, or like, did you look at them and say like, maybe, or did you say like they're just a bunch of idiots?
I wouldn't say idiots. Like I said, I wouldn't even say I felt bad for them. I just felt like I understood why someone would choose to believe something.
So it's not, you didn't have any anger in your heart towards.
Absolutely not.
Because you know what I mean? There's some people who are out there who like
absolutely
have anger and almost put off what they're dealing with on, someone else's faith themselves.
Absolutely. I used to digest all these different, what they called the new atheists. Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris. They're all these people that are pioneers in their field and evolutionary biology and neuroscience. That as a scholar, you're looking at these people as this is the top of the heap.
Yeah.
They're not only do they have all these empirically backed studies that they've researched or that they've done themselves, and then they go out sort of evangelizing against God, and saying how essentially that religion is like a disease, and they'll go out and they're doing the exact same thing as evangelists do, but they do it for atheists.
Sure.
So I'm watching all these debates with them and then these Christians, and I'm looking and I'm watching how the Christians, they don't have the proof, they don't have the evidence, if you will, to refute, and the problem is trying to prove something that you can't prove. Like there's no physical evidence. There's not in the same way that you can do when you can measure something in a study, right? And there's obviously proof about what something happened historically, but as far as what that means or how that is, like in the same thing, it's like the evidence was people's eyewitness account and of Jesus, right? So as someone that looks at how evidence is gathered and collected in car accidents, there could be several people that watch the same accident and their report of it is completely different. The color of the car changes, the kind of car changes, all these different things. It's unreliable. So for me, it's like, I didn't have any sort of angst towards people that believed. I, if anything, would feel bad for them or have like this sort of sense of like, I know more. Because you didn't go to school for this. You don't understand how evidence works. It's okay. I know more.
Okay.
Right. So, and being that I didn't have followers for friends. Yeah. And I'm saying I didn't have any friends that had any sort of relationship with religion. Yeah. And I was born Catholic, and I went to mass a couple times, and it's extremely boring. It's extremely boring, especially when they're speaking in Latin, and then you're sitting down, and then you kneel, and you stand up, and you sit down and kneel, and you stand up, and then you confess your sins to a priest. And all the people that I knew that were Catholics, they weren't exactly walking in Christ. Right. So they just had a pass to do whatever they wanted to do, and they could just go to the priest on Sunday. So I didn't have any, and there was no relationship. There's a priest that stands between you and God. And he's the arbiter of religion. You have to just listen to what he's saying. So I never knew anybody that had any sort of personal relationship with God, with Jesus at all. So I get out of the accident, and they had a chaplain that came and talked, and I didn't have anything to say about it because I don't believe. You know what I'm saying? So I was dismissive.
Came to you specifically?
Yes.
Okay.
Because they do that with people that are in those kinds of accidents. Because from my understanding, that there's a high suicide rate for people who have traumatic injuries like that. Like it's disproportionately high, because especially because like I said, like there's so many different ways that you could lose a leg. You can, by cancer, people have lost their legs.
You don't know what percentage that is though?
I think it's like in the 30s, like 30%.
You want to look that up, John?
Sure. I don't know exactly the number, but it's disproportionately higher than an average person.
Right.
And so,
but I mean, in a way, it's like you can understand because Your life's changed in a moment.
100.
You went from being able to run in between jobs to now having to refigure out everything.
Everything. I'm telling you. I mean, it was so bad. It was so bad because like not just the pain, not just the road rash thing, like they're coming in, they're giving you antibiotics, they're giving you all these different medications every like 3 hours. So I didn't have any sleep. You know what I'm saying? And I sleep on my stomach, so I couldn't sleep, period, like sitting up. And it was just so much pain. I'm telling you, so much pain.
How long were you in the hospital for?
About 5 weeks.
Wow.
I was in there about 5 weeks. And then, so I'm in just excruciating. And sometimes the pain was so bad. Like it would feel like I'm being attacked by ants, like fire ants. Like I just felt like fire ants were just eating my leg. And then I had the phantom pain where like my foot that's no longer there is in pain. You know what I'm saying? And then I'd feel like it'd be, I'd have like my foot was like wet, but it's not there. You know what I'm saying? And there were sometimes, like I said, just feel like fire ants or pins and needles.
Jeez.
It was excruciating. And then I remember being in bed long enough and I had tubes everywhere. I couldn't, peeing, defecating, everything was by a tube. I was being fed by a tube. So slowly but surely, all the tubes started coming out.
Why were they feeding you by tube?
Because when I was being in the coma, and initially when I was in a coma, you can't eat. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how they had to do it.
Did they put you in a coma for this too?
Yeah.
How long were you in the coma for?
I think I was in the coma for like 2 weeks.
From the time, okay, so the accident happens.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a coma for 2 weeks. You wake up 2 weeks later.
Yes.
Knowing that you got into an accident, remembering that you saw your femur sticking out of your leg.
Oh yeah, there's no forgetting that.
And then that's after that 2 weeks. Did you know that 2 weeks had passed at that point?
No, I had no
You're
clue.
thinking that you had woken up
Absolutely. I had
from
no
a
clue.
quick nap.
I had no clue. I thought it was that day, the day of the
gosh.
next day.
I thought you were talking about the coma from the first time.
No.
I didn't. Wow. So okay.
Same situation. Luckily I had a helmet on.
Right.
And I would never go anywhere without the helmet.
Yeah.
So luckily, if I didn't have the helmet, I probably wouldn't be here. But so I had the helmet on, and then so I come out the coma, and I'm dealing with all this pain. I'm dealing with, luckily I remember them taking the breathing tube out because I had to have a respiratory tube, and I remember vaguely them taking that out, and then so I'm just sitting there stuck in this bed, and luckily they had visitation hours from like 9 o'clock to like 10 o'clock. And I had my mom and my sisters taking turns around the clock being there with me. And then I remember they took out the catheter. So I was able to pee with the little bedside commode type situation. And then I remember when they had taken out the tube, so I could go number 2 by myself.
Yeah.
Well, I can't move. Like it's extremely painful. So I called in the nurse and told them I had to go. And they brought like a pan that I had to try and wedge up underneath me and go. And it was extremely painful. It was so painful. And I was like, I can't do that again. So then the next time, I remember I didn't want to eat because I didn't want to have to go to the bathroom.
Right.
So then I eventually had to go to the bathroom again. And then I had like the most beautiful nurses. Like they're all like in their early 20s, super pretty, super sweet, super friendly.
That helped.
It did until you had to go to the bathroom. Right. So I had to call them in.
You're like, hey, can you get the ugly nurse real quick?
There wasn't one. There wasn't one on the floor. So I'd call them.
Everybody was angelic.
Man, it was too much. And then so they brought a bedside commode. They brought like a bedside toilet. And they had to like help me stand up. And standing up was a crazy situation. When you don't have a leg, it's so weird, especially when you're first learning how to get up, because like there's so much you don't even realize. Like I remember the first time that after standing up, sitting back down, I fell on the bed because you're used to having something being that counterweight. Yeah. And saying, but there's nothing there. So I just remember like, oh, okay, this is different. This is a new thing I got to figure out. And then so I go and I can't I used to live with my girlfriend. I never used the same bathroom as her. And it's not because of anything she did. I just didn't want anyone. I didn't want her to ever have to even smell something that I did. You know what I'm saying? Like, just
Yeah, if you have two bathrooms,
I would never
each
do
person has their own.
I
That
would
makes
never
sense.
do it. Never. And then so I have like two nurses, beautiful nurses, like in their early 20s, super sweet, and they have to hold me up, and I have to go right in front of them.
Oh man.
I have to go right in front of them, and then they have to wipe me. They have to wipe me. So they wipe me. I'm like heartbroken. As this is happening, I'm like, I can't believe this is my life. I can't believe this is my life. And that was like the first and only time that I went into like a state of depression. That I was laying down. It wasn't even the leg. It wasn't even the pain. It was the fact. It was the fact that I had to be so dependent on someone else, and I recognized that this is gonna have to be like this for a while. And I just remember laying in the bed after the visitation hours were over and being like, it would just be so much easier if I wasn't here. Like I didn't want to kill myself, but I just was thinking like how much easier it'd be for everybody else if I wasn't here. And I remember that next morning, my older sister Chada, she came in and she could see it on my face. She could see that something was different. And she asked me what's going on. And I just started crying. And I told her about the whole situation. And I told her, like, I just feel like it'd probably be a lot easier if I wasn't here. And she's like, listen, you got to snap out of it. She's like, I'm not going to let you feel sorry for yourself. She's like, you're lucky to be alive and we're lucky to have you. And like, I just like, as soon as she said it, as soon as I just saw her face, I was like, okay, that's it. I didn't, from that moment on, I never had a single thought about feeling bad about myself, about feeling bad about the situation. It was just like an instant snap out of it. You know what I'm saying? You're lucky to be alive and we're lucky to have you. And I was like, okay, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
thank God for Chada.
100%.
Thank God for the voices that we have positive in our life. And because you were that's such a quick state of like feeling like I it would be easier for me not be here. You're talking about less than 24 hours that you thought that, in a sense, right?
100%. I mean, absolutely. It was like for the time that happened to the next morning, I couldn't sleep. I'm just sitting there feeling bad for myself, just sitting there feeling like, that I can't imagine having to have my sisters do that, having to have my mom do that, because if I can't do it myself, I can't stand up, I can't do any of this stuff by myself. Like it was too much. It was too much to think. And she's like, snap out of it. I'm not gonna let you feel sorry for yourself. You're lucky to be alive, and we're lucky to have you here.
That's crazy. That's so important for like. I mean, obviously, everyone has their biological family, but in Chada's your biological sister.
Mm-hmm.
But even if it's not like a family member, like if we have, like John is an only child, Tay, my wife, is an only child. We still need those people in our life to be our Chada, to be able to come in and say like, hey, like, yeah, life is gonna suck for a little bit, but you have way more to do, way more to live, for you to feel sorry for yourself, because we still have you.
Absolutely.
Because they were looking at it from the opposite side. They're like, we already lost our stepfather. Your mom's saying, I already lost my husband. I at least get to still see Raph every single day.
Absolutely. And it's so crazy because I've always embraced the challenge. I've always embraced the challenges, and I like putting myself in an uncomfortable situation and getting over it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember when I was a kid, I was super obese. When I was 13 years old, I weighed 218 pounds. I was humongous. And I remember that I came back from a trip to Puerto Rico, my first time meeting my dad. I'm saying, like, I met him when I was like 13.
Yeah.
And then so I was super huge. I ate like everything on the island. And I came back, and I remember I was walking through Walmart, and they had like one of those old cameras that were like set up and a TV hooked up.
Yeah.
And I walked past and I saw, because normally if I'm looking in the mirror, I'm looking front and I'm sucking it in.
Yeah.
I'm saying, and I see this blimp, and I'm saying, just taking up the whole TV screen. I was like, what the? Oh my God, that's me.
Yeah.
So I was like, I gotta fix this. So I started trying to run, and I couldn't make it to the end of the street. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna make it to this house and then walk back. And next day I'm going to make it to the next house and walk back. So that's when I started developing my love for running, because then it just started coming off.
At 13.
At 13, the weight started coming off. So then it wasn't long before I lost almost all the weight. And then and I developed and one of the things, I started cramping up really quickly. And my mom was telling me that it was because I wasn't getting enough oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to develop a different style of breathing. It was sort of like an anticipating panting. And I'd be so I just did that the entire time, and I'd time it with my steps. So I had this whole breathing style, just ingrained, and then the cramping went away, and then I could just lock in to just breathing, and everything goes away.
So how much weight did you lose, and by what age?
I went from 218 to 150. And saying within 9 months,
68 pounds.
It was a lot of weight. It was incredible.
Oh my gosh.
So
dude, you need to write a book. You got a full life, man.
Man. And then so I always had the embrace the challenge kind of situation.
Yeah.
And then I remember I started skateboarding, and I remember one time for my birthday I asked them to take me and my friends to a skate park. I went to a skate park, and we started doing these little ramps. And then there was big ramps where you couldn't see the actual ramp to go drop in on. And I chickened out. And on the entire way home, I was just, you're such a chicken shit. I can't believe you did this. I'm just beating myself up. And I'm never again. So the next year, I got the same opportunity to go to that ramp. And I looked down, saw the same amount of fear. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. I did it, and I made it. And that feeling was so intense. All the fear that I had, all the frustration I had about not doing it, it was just wiped away and just filled me with all this power and energy. I can do it. I can do anything. So from that moment on, I'd always find situations where it's oh, I don't know if this feels uncomfortable, and then just do it.
Yeah.
And then I did. And then so I had this sense of understanding, there's a challenge. I can accomplish it. It's going to take time, and just breathe. Just focus on your breath. Right. So then I remember the first time that the physical therapy was going to come in, and I was going to get the chance to walk with a walker. So I get up with a lot of difficulty, and I'm on the walker, and I ran for 3.5 miles every day, and I had really strong legs, and I had very strong, well-developed calves. That people would compliment me on my calves, but uncomfortably so. You know what I'm saying? They were this one guy I worked with, man, you got such nice calves. And I was like, okay, I got you, man. But so I look, and my legs shrunk, and
in
just
2 weeks.
It was by the time I was able to walk, it was probably 3-4 weeks into it.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So that just that time, it shrunk. I had nothing. Right. And then so just getting up and standing was so difficult, and it was so draining. I could barely make it to the end of the room before I had to go back and lay down. And then, so I remember the next day, it's all right, I'm going to make it out of the room, and I'm going to make it to the nurse's desk. And then I'm going to walk back the next day. I'm going to make it to the end of the nurse's desk.
So you took that same mindset that you had when you were 13 and applied it to your current situation.
Absolutely. So then all the physical therapists and the nurses oh my God, you're doing so good. We've never seen anyone do this well before. And I was I know what I got to do.
Yeah,
so,
you're here's my number. Pass it out to all the nurses.
Right. And then, I remember they started talking about I was ready for crutches. And I remember that I got in the crutches, and it was I feel like I could fly. I feel like it was the first time I was able to move. And I'm saying move quickly, and I was man, still exhausted. I could make probably another 20 feet before I get tired, but I could start moving.
Yeah.
So then I started being okay, I'm gonna be able to do this. It's gonna take time, but I'm gonna be able to do this. And I remember then they started saying that I'm gonna be about being ready to I could be discharged soon. And I remember feeling excited but terrified, because I'm in a hospital. They're taking care of me with medication. They're taking care of me with everything that I need is a button push away. And I was going to have to go move back into my mom's house, and they're going to have to go and retrofit everything. They're going to have to try and put something in the bathroom for me to take a shower. I was going to have everything taken care of, so I could put a ramp in the front so I could use a wheelchair, because a wheelchair is the primary way I was moving around.
Yeah.
I think it was too exhausting to move and dangerous, because I had to have a Like I had it was like an antibiotic. At first, I had antibiotic that was carrying with me in the hospital, but then I had something that was called it was something to suck out the fluid that was building up in my leg. So I had that. I'm about to get released. I'm getting to the point where I can go to the bathroom by myself. I can get up. I can go to the actual bathroom. I can close the door behind me. And that was the first time I looked in the mirror and I could see that I could see myself without the leg. I'm like emaciated and and I don't see the leg. I just see the absence of the leg. And it's
Right.
like, it was intense.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm using the bathroom. I feel like I'm
Oh,
ready
you're
to
talking
go.
about like without gauze?
No. Those still gauze
Okay,
on
okay.
it. I could just see the gown.
Gotcha.
I could just see below that there's one leg on this side, there's no leg on that side.
Okay.
It's different looking in the mirror.
Right.
And then I look so gaunt, like I'm so pale.
Yeah.
And just it was disturbing looking. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It was weird. But so I closed the door and I had this awesome sense of security, I could do this by myself. I can go to the bathroom by myself. And then so I was going to the bathroom by myself, and my sister Amanda, she came to visit me that day, and she heard me in the bathroom. She heard the toilet flush. I washed my hands and I grabbed the door handle, and then she opened it. And she opened it while I was holding on to it, and it was the first time that I fell. And the first time that I fell, it's just such a crazy feeling going this way and not having anything to stop you going that way.
Yeah.
So I just fall on my stump. The stitches bust open.
Ugh.
And there's so much fluid and blood, and it just covered the floor.
No.
And one of the nurses, she was really, really young, really new, and she was freaking out. And you're not supposed to do that as a nurse,
Yeah.
but she just couldn't help it because it was just everywhere, and it was so intense. So they had to take me back up to surgery to sew everything up, and luckily they were gonna release me like that before I fell, and after falling, they busted open all this fluid that they said they couldn't get out. So all this fluid that they said couldn't get out, it left.
So it was a blessing in disguise.
It was and it's one of the things that's I look back and I'm like, that's all I could see. And I'm saying that's all I could see. But at the time, it's just a horrible situation, not a setback. And then okay, well, at least it's better. I got the fluid out. So I get released. I remember the first time I was going out of the hospital, and I was getting in the car, and it was just such a crazy feeling. It was so crazy leaving the security of the hospital and getting in a car, and then I was in so much pain I couldn't sit up. You know what I'm saying, so they had to put the seat all the way back.
Yeah.
And I just remember looking up to the window and feeling myself moving the car, and it was like a PTSD situation. You know what I'm saying, being in the car on the road. It was freaking. I was freaking out.
Did you have to pass by where you got in the accident?
Yeah. But I couldn't see anything. You know what I'm saying, because I'm laying down.
But still, you grew up here, right?
Yeah.
So I can close my eyes in the car here, have my wife drive me to work, have my eyes closed the whole time, but knowing generally where she's going, I have an idea of where we would be. Did you have that same sense? And did you have this sense of anxiety when you were crossing Proctor?
I just had I don't really get, at least I don't intellectualize anxiety. I just, felt, I just call it PTSD, but maybe it was, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. But I was feeling it, you know what I'm saying? I was feeling it the entire time. And every single time I would get in the car afterwards, the pain was so much. I'd feel pain sitting down, laying down, and then I'd have to get up and it would alleviate the pain for 5 seconds. And then I'd start getting in pain standing up. And then I had to tolerate it as long as I could until I had to lay back down. It was just nonstop pain. It was nonstop pain. And then I did the same situation that I did running with the walker, and my sister Chada. She would walk me. I was like, I want to go to this house, and then walk back, and then she would wheelchair me back, and then walk down to this house, and then she would wheelchair me back. And I got to the point where I could walk back with the walk by myself, and just slowly, step by step, small improvements. I'd call them small victories.
I love Chada.
Me too. And so I got to that point, and so I was able to go with a walker, but the pain was so intense. And I remember they kept tapering me off the pain medication. And I was like, the pain isn't getting any less. And I'm not getting the relief I needed from the medication. And I remember I went to the doctor, and they stopped the prescription. and I was able to call a couple times and get it filled through one of the assistants. But then eventually I went in, and he's like, "Listen, he's like, I know it's not doesn't gonna sound right." He's like, "But this is all psychological." He's like, "The pain that you're feeling, this medication isn't treating that pain, and whatever relief you're feeling from the pain medication is psychological." He's like, "So I'm going to take you off the medication." And I remember feeling like such a sense of betrayal. I remember feeling like, what are you doing? Like, I'm in so much pain. You can't see how much pain I'm in. Like, just imagine it. Like, I remember looking at him like, "You got two legs, man. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what kind of pain I'm in." And I remember like saying, "Accept the challenge. All right, I'm just going to have to deal with this pain." And then it was like less than a week went by and the pain went away.
Do you think that you got like addicted to the pain meds?
No, I mean, I very
was
much.
it like, if you don't mind me asking, was it like Oxy or
Yeah.
Because have you seen that show on Netflix?
No.
Painkillers.
No.
It's about the Oxy epidemic that happened back in I want to say it was the 90s. Because doctors were I don't know if they still are, incentivized to sell more.
Oh yeah.
So another like blessing in disguise, right? That this guy said like, "Listen, it's here.
100.
Sugar pill yourself into this like sense of, literally take sugar pills and tell yourself it's pain meds, get yourself off." That right there is another blessing in disguise, because had you stayed on it and become reliant and dependent on that being your source of relief,
man,
where are we today?
I know that my grandma, I lived with her for a while, and she was addicted to pain medication, and she was a complete zombie for the last years of her life. So I saw how she would like fall asleep in her food. Like she would fall asleep at the table, and I was like, that's why I hated pills.
Yeah.
Like if I had a headache,
that's right. You mentioned that.
I wouldn't even take Advil or anything like that. I was like, I'll just wait it out.
To this day?
No, that's how it was then. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Now, like I'm smarter. Like usually I don't get headaches.
Gotcha.
But if I did, I would take one. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously especially when I had to take the seizure medication, they said initially I was going to have to be on it for 2 years. And then in that same conversation, as he was looking over my charts, he's like, "You're having to take it forever." And I was like, "I have to take pills forever?" I hated that thought. I hated the thought of having to take pills, but and that's why I was reluctant to do it.
Yeah.
Until eventually I recognized how serious it was if I didn't do it. So I'm taking this medication. I had to get taken to the hospital to get IV treatment like every day, because I had a severe infections, and they had to be treated by antibiotics. I had to go in intravenously
with your leg.
And then so getting in the car was painful. The drive was painful. Sitting in the room was painful. Waiting for the IV was painful. Just pain was just constantly around me at all times. I was constantly engulfed in pain. And before the accident, I was an avid drinker, and I smoked a lot of marijuana. Like I smoked a lot. And so I remember I couldn't sleep, and I remember that I got some gummies. Then the gummies would help me sleep. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling like there's some sort of relief I'm getting from this. And then I remember someone got me a pen that you can just smoke through the pen. You know what I'm saying? Like a vape cart.
Yeah.
And I remember it was insane. It was so crazy. But for the first time, I was not feeling pain. And like the first time was wild. It was because obviously months after I had smoked, and like it was very strong. I remember very vividly, like I felt like my leg, I felt like I had two. I felt like they were sinking through the bed, and I just kept seeing myself in the scene of the accident. I kept seeing myself in the scene of the accident, and then I'd just distract myself, and I just remember like laughing, and then it was just like a weird way of like being at the accident and then just like laughing, and it was just some sort of relief that I was getting from it. So then I started getting the pen, and I started smoking cannabis again. I started doing that. And then, so during this whole time, there was no thought of God. There was no thought of God. I had never had any sort of inclinations or anything about it. And I still remember being extremely grateful for being alive.
So even in that being in the hospital, all that had happened, not only in that particular accident, but everything in the past, never brought you to a moment of like thinking to yourself, having a conversation with yourself of like even if it was just like anger towards God, to be like, why are you doing this to me?
Nope.
Never?
Never. Not once.
Okay.
Because I was so fully convinced. I
Yeah.
was so fully convinced that there was no God.
So there was no praying
No.
on purpose or by accident?
Nope.
Because I've heard a lot of people say like, or you hear stories of people saying like, I didn't believe, and then all of a sudden, I was on death's door, and I said, and then I said a prayer.
Nope. Not even when I was sitting there bleeding out. And I'm saying when I was sitting there bleeding out, it was so far from concept. Like
Yeah.
it wouldn't have happened because I just didn't believe.
Gotcha.
It didn't happen. And I remember that I had a good friend of mine. She was an ex, and she would come and visit me every now and then. And when I was good enough to leave, she was the first person that would take me out. And she said that she wanted to take me to church.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up going to church, and it was Bayside, but it was Bayside on Bee Ridge.
On the other side of 75.
Mm-hmm. And then we went there, and I just remember sitting there for the worship, and I remember feeling something I'd never felt before. Like I remember feeling like this, because I had an insane amount of gratitude for being alive.
Yeah.
Like I recognized how lucky I was to be alive, but I didn't have anywhere to put it. And I'm saying I didn't have anywhere to put it because it was just the universe. The universe is just a random series of events. And just luckily I was able to be saved. Luckily I was able to be, rescued, and that things just happened by chance. And this is how the way it worked. So I wasn't until I was at worship and I was listening to the music, and I just felt something I'd never felt before. And I had somewhere to put my gratitude.
Yeah.
And I didn't have an experience, you know what I'm saying? Like even in the ambulance, I didn't have a life after death experience. I didn't have any sort of religious anything. I remember feeling when I was at church that I just felt so good. I felt so good in a way that I'd never felt before. And I remember just feeling that feeling and being enticed to, like, at least I don't know why, but it feels good being there.
Mm.
I don't know why, but it just feels good being there. So she started taking me. And then, like, I didn't have any sort of concept of God. Like I understood what people were saying. And I've been to different churches before, and because I took a religion course, and then you had to go to a sermon. You had to go to a ceremony, and I went to one, and like they were talking about how essentially that everything's God's, and that God gave his only son, like what are you willing to give to God? And then they passed the plates around, and I just remember like this is such a scam.
Yeah.
Like this is such a scam. Like all these people suckers.
Yeah.
And saying so, like I was like I was very distant from the concept of God.
Yeah.
And I just remember being at that church and just feeling so good, and just having some sort of like, it was like the beginning, and like it was like a seed being planted, or watering a seed that had already been planted.
Mm.
And that I recognized, because I had a religious experience in the fact that I was super atheistic even when I was young, when I was like 13 or 14. And I was aware of the Communist Manifesto and Karl Marx, and saying essentially that religion is the opiate of the masses,
Mm-hmm.
that people just take religion to feel good. And I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone, and my mom overheard it. And then she saw these Mormon missionaries walking down the street. So she, probably for the first time in their life, someone asked them to come over. And then so
Hey, Jehovah's?
we actually, they're Mormons.
Oh, okay.
And so they started talking to me, and they read something from the Bible, and they said, "How do you feel?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel pretty good."
Yeah.
So I started going to the church. And I went there every Sunday, walking with the button up and tie, walking to church in the sweltering heat. And I remember their ceremonies was based primarily on testimony. Like people would go up and they would talk about how God influenced them that their week.
Yeah.
And then I felt really good when I was there. And then the more I went, I started hearing some kind of shady stuff, that they said that being black was the mark of Cain. That's what that's what being black was that's how God decided to differentiate. The mark of Cain was being black. And I was like,
And
that's insane.
and this is you at 13.
Yeah, this is me at 13. I was like, that's insane. And then they said that they elected a president. That's the head of the church. There's someone they elect, and he talks to God. He physically goes into a room once a year and physically talks to God. And I was like, that's insane. You elect someone to talk to God. I was like, I can't do it anymore.
So at that point, you don't have the ability to go directly to him. You have to go through him.
Yeah.
And you better have a good relationship with him.
Man. So I was just, I just got disillusioned from it, and that was the last time that I set foot in a church. So I had any interest in being in a church. And then so fast forward to where I was, grateful to be alive, crutching into Bayside.
At 34, 5 years old?
36.
Okay.
Yeah, 36. And it happened like right before July of 2022 is when it happened.
Okay.
Right. And so I was like 36, just turning 37. Right.
When the accident happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so I started going to church, and I started feeling really good, and I didn't know why. But I wanted to keep feeling good. I kept wanting to feel that feeling.
Yeah.
So I kept going to church. And I remember that sometimes the sermons would be really on point, that they would make me feel really good. That's is very insightful. It was very insightful. And then the more I started going, the more I started realizing, like, it piqued my curiosity. And I started investigating more. And I started learning more. And I started just giving into the fact that all the things that I thought were BS, you know what I'm saying? What if things are true that you can't prove? I'm saying, and it was so foreign to me that that's a case that I could believe something without proof, but I knew the proof was in how I felt. Like I felt like I felt something different, like it's 100%.
Yeah.
And that I remember that I kept going, and that as I kept going, then I started to pray. Because that's one of the things that, as I was asking my friend, I'd ask her a lot of questions, very like cross-examination questions, like, well, this about Jesus, this about the disciples, all these different things. That what about this contradiction? What about that contradiction? Because there's so many things in the Bible that on first glance it seems insane to me.
Yeah.
Like I said, I used to digest all these atheists, and they would talk and they debate Christians, and they would say, like, this passage of Jesus Christ, he walks to a fig tree that doesn't have figs when it's out of season for it to have figs, and he curses the tree. And I'm like, what kind of God doesn't know what everybody else knows, goes to a fig tree out of season and gets mad about it?
Yeah.
And I thought that was insane, right? It just didn't make sense that this all-knowing God wouldn't know that there wasn't going to be figs on the fig tree out of season, right? So like from the first superficial reading of these things, I just got hung up on it. And I remember every single time that I'd read something, I just made a list of all the things that I couldn't figure out, I didn't understand. But I started getting more curious. So I remember that was a big sticking point. And I remember I read that it said that the fig tree was constantly an analogy for the church of Israel, the actual physical church, and the people that were practicing their very legalistic way of following the word.
Mm-hmm.
That there was no soul, there was no spirit behind it, just following because of appearances and because what you're supposed to do. And they're saying essentially that was the fig tree, and the fig tree didn't bear fruit, and that it was a metaphor in the same way that it was a parable, in the same way that Jesus primarily and not only spoke in parables.
Right. And
then it was the first time I was like, oh my God, there's something else to this.
Yeah.
There's another layer of understanding that actually requires you to want to understand instead of just dismiss it. So then I could engage with it intellectually, and then I could be like, oh wow, there's a secret, there's a hidden knowledge in this that I just dismissed. And I started being able to accept the fact, like, I can't prove it, but I'm going to continue to entertain it. And the more I'd go, the stronger that feeling would get. And during worship, I would cry. And I'm saying, like, I'd cry during the songs. And like, I just felt so moved, so just so grateful and so moved and so in the presence. And I just felt like as I kept going, that I started getting that the process of praying, and I started engaging with the concept that what if God is real? What if God is real? And then I started looking back, and all the things that had happened to me, I saw them differently.
Yeah.
I saw them differently. Like that first accident, the fact that I was alive, the fact that I came out with all my senses, the fact that I was able to still go to law school, the fact that I was able to pass, all the fact that all these people that were around me, surrounding me, that was able to help my family, help myself out. And then it was a miracle, but I didn't accept it.
Yeah.
I didn't accept it as a miracle.
It's almost like at this point the scales
It was just
fell off.
It's just 100%.
Yeah.
And then I look back and I think about the likelihood of that police officer responding. They're not trained to do it like that. Like they're not like, first responders like that. Like and he took off his own belt to do that. And it's just one of those things, like the amount of blood they said, I can't remember. My sister just told me today that she was talking to a friend of hers about how many liters of blood that I lost. I can't remember the number, but essentially it was like all of my blood. Like how much blood that I received, the blood transfusions throughout the course of the accident, was essentially like all the blood in the human body. Like
Good Lord.
I lost all this blood, and like I should have been dead. I should have been dead. And then all the surgeries that they're telling me, that they came in like telling my family, like, make sure you spend time with him because he may not make it out of this procedure.
Wow.
So like I look back, like there was so many opportunities that I could have died, and that the first responder, Josh Snow, the ambulance and the paramedics and the ambulance had to keep me alive long enough to get to the hospital. The surgeons had to have the skill and the knowledge to be able to do what they had to do. I had to have the nurses around me that were constantly able to keep me there. If my sister wasn't there saying what she had to say in order to keep my head on straight.
Facts.
And then all these different things, the medication, the treatments, and then, having the opportunity to go and have a friend of mine, just entice me to say, hey, go to church. You're not doing anything else.
Right.
You're not doing anything else. So then I remember I started going to church, and
your heart posture too, because you had to be open to you didn't have to go.
Yeah.
But also the heart posture of not feeling anger towards anything, because you were so deeply rooted in non-belief that you had no posture of having a closed heart.
That's right.
Your heart was literally still open from day one to be able to receive her invitation to Bayside.
That's exactly what it is. Woo. Get those goosebumps. And it's
listen, man, I didn't cry when my kids were born, so I don't want them to see this podcast and hear me see me crying. But this is crazy. Okay, so what was your first give your life to Jesus moment?
I remember that it was such a I remember I got this at one of the functions they're doing. They're handing out these bracelets, and it's Philippians 4:13. And I remember that I looked it up, and I was like, okay, that's incredible that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Because this is not my power that kept me alive.
Right.
I wasn't the one who did this. And saying like someone else, something else had to be behind, responsible for me being here. So, and I remember that I got an invitation on Facebook to go to get a free jiu-jitsu class. And I remember that I signed up and I told them, like, listen, I've got limitations.
Yeah.
And saying, but so they're able to, he said, come in, I'll work with you. And I remember that they do the lessons, they show the lessons, and I could see the gears in his head moving. My professor, the instructor, the Marcialis, I could just see the gears moving in his head on how we're going to tweak this.
Yeah.
And I could see that, and I was like, that's what I need to be around. Like, that's the same way that I work. I just like looking at how am I going to make this work. So I remember that there's someone that was in there that he's like, oh, I really like your bracelet. And I guess he had a rash guard, is what they call it, the shirts that you wear, that had Philippians 14 on the back.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's crazy. So then I just like this small little things just like that just started clicking. And then, I just remember feeling like now I feel I'm in too deep that I can't deny it anymore. I can't deny it anymore, but I don't know exactly, maybe it's God, but I don't know about Jesus. I don't know. It didn't cognitively make sense. I couldn't wrap my head around,
Yeah.
how this whole thing worked out. And then I just remember step by step, just wanting to get more involved. And I remember that they had the growth track. And I remember going through the growth track. And I remember like each week just feeling a greater sense of closeness to God. And I just remember feeling like a greater sense of closeness to God. And I remember feeling like when I prayed that I was having like a conversation with God. Like I really felt like it wasn't just me talking to myself in a room.
Yeah.
I felt like I was actually feeling something. And that what I'd come to realize is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And saying what I'd come to realize is that, that the Holy Spirit was with me, and the Holy Spirit had been with me that entire time. And that I've been, carried by angels. And I'm saying that I've been saved, physically. And I recognized how, and I think they were talking about, I believe it was they're talking about Paul and how he was a persecutor of Christians.
I believe so, but I think his name wasn't Paul at the time.
Yeah.
It was Saul.
Yeah. And that he was a persecutor of Christians.
Yeah.
That he was involved in essentially executing Christians. And then he had Jesus met him on the road to Damascus.
Yep.
And then I started thinking about how he was someone that was physically persecuting Christians, but I was intellectually persecuting Christians.
Yeah.
And I had been doing all this, not executing them, but I've been doing all this intellectual execution where I'm watching all these people, what I thought to be losing debates with these professors and scholars, and arming myself to, combat someone's religious beliefs in the event that we got into it. And I remember conversations that I've had with people that I was essentially kind of talking them out of the religion.
Yeah.
Like I had a friend that was Jewish and I had a friend that was Christian, and they said they couldn't believe that I didn't believe in a God. And I was like, well, you don't believe in Allah, and there's a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew. And I was like, you guys don't believe in the same things.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't believe in their God, you don't believe in their God. I just don't believe in any of your gods.
Right.
Like it's just a degree of difference. So I remember all these conversations that I had, and I just remember thinking like, I felt like I was being armed for the exact opposite. You know what I'm saying? I feel like in the entire time that now I had all these different arguments that I knew intimately, like the fig tree. Yeah. Now I know what the fig tree means.
Right.
And now if that ever came up, I'd be like, well, I don't think you understand exactly what the fig tree is. It's a parable.
So whereas before, as an atheist, you were equipped mentally to not be convinced otherwise. Now, and you had a strong character, a strong foundation on that.
Yeah.
Now, on the reverse side, you have a relationship with God.
Yes, sir.
Whereas no one, regardless of their ideas, their faith, their religion, can come in and knock you off of your foundation you have now.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things too that I recognize that I think it was one of the things that Pastor Randy was talking about was about faith, and that there you can't have proof. If you have faith, there can't be proof. That there's no faith if you know for a fact that there's God. There's no faith.
Well, that takes it away.
Absolutely. And then I recognize okay.
Faith is believing in the things not seen.
And now I understand. Like, that's what it's about. Like, it's about belief. It's about faith. It's about love and worship, something that you can't exactly prove. And then it all started making sense to me. Everything started making sense to me. Like, why? Because I was like, why wouldn't God just like open up the skies and talk to everybody and say, hey, listen, I'm here, cut it out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's like when you recognize that, like, there has to be, in order for you to love, in order for you to have faith, that you can't have proof. And and not only just love and faith, but free will. Yeah. That if he gave us free will and he proved to us that he existed, there's no free will anymore, or it's severely diminished by the fact that you know that God's there, he proved it, and you had to follow him because he's a slave driver, and that's how it is. It's like he gives us all the choice. He gives us all the choice to even believe he exists or not. And then I started thinking about it like that, and it's like, okay, and then we have someone that's opposing God, and they want you to not believe in God. And I remember thinking about all these things. Like there's a movie, The Devil's Advocate. I don't know if you saw it with Al Pacino. He plays the devil.
No.
And like I remember being compelled by what he was saying. Like that God's an absentee landlord. He's not here. He gave up on us. And then thinking about how that's what the devil would want you to do. The devil wants you to believe he doesn't exist.
Right.
The devil wants to believe, make fun of God, make fun of religion. And you're stupid if you believe. You know what I'm saying? And then so recognizing like God doesn't want to prove that it exists. The devil wants you to not believe that God exists. And I see like, okay, here's another challenge. Here's another challenge. And how am I going to overcome it? And then I recognized that when I was reading, I started coming up all these different problems I'd have with it. And then once I started developing that faith, I stopped finding things that I had problems with. I started recognizing like there's an understanding. And if I don't know it yet, it's okay. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to have the evidence. I don't have to have the answer right now. I can pray on it. I can ask people. And that's one of the beautiful things about Bayside is that once I started going regularly and I started going the growth track, then Jason, that's in the group, he said that they have a men's group that meets.
Yeah.
Right. And I was looking up, I couldn't find the men's group that meets on Mondays, but they had one men studying Acts. And then on Wednesdays. So I started going to the men studying Acts. And it's the first time I was in a group of people. And I chose to be in a group of people that wanted to learn about God. Not just sit there and worship, but want to learn about God. And I just felt like an odd sense of camaraderie. Like, this feels different. This feels different than anything I've ever done before. But I remember having questions, going in and asking people questions, and having them give me answers. Or showing me to where I could find the answers. And I started feeling like, okay, there's a way. There is a way to understand. There's a way to at least quiet that loud part of my mind that's like, nah, this doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. There's a contradiction. And I remember for that first time being in that group of people, and it went through the book of Acts. I think it was like 5 weeks. And at the end, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then, because they said there was a group on Monday, but I couldn't find it. And then I went afterwards. My girlfriend, I guess she was raised religious, but she was far from it.
Yeah.
When we got together.
Mm-hmm.
We were both drinking all the time. Like, we could drink every single day. Like, we both worked at the same restaurant. We got home and we just started drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had already started getting kind of frustrated with the alcohol because when she got really drunk, she would get it different.
Yeah.
And I wasn't necessarily wanting to be around that anymore. And I just remember telling her, like, listen, like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done drinking. I don't like how it is on you. I don't like how it is on me. So I just quit drinking. And then so I told her, I was like, listen, I'm going to church and I want you to come with me. And she came with me and she loved it. And that she quit drinking. And then so we just started making all these, and then I was still smoking. I quit drinking, but I was still smoking. And it was another instance of some of the Bayside when they're talking about, you have to ask God for faith, ask God for, to strengthen your faith, and you have to ask God for the Holy Spirit to move in you. And I remember thinking, like, I wanted the Holy Spirit to be in me. I wanted to make my body a place that the Holy Spirit could want to be in. Yeah. And I wanted to have guidance. I wanted to seek guidance. And I recognized that it's like that God doesn't yell at you, or he does. I wasn't seeing it. It was just a whisper. It was just a whisper, and I wasn't listening. And then I just recognized, like, I started having this whisper. It's like, listen, you need to quit. I remember I started reading the Bible every day. But then I'd smoke afterwards. And then I remember looking at that pen and feeling bad about it. And I'm like, I'm already going to church. I'm reading the Bible. I'm already doing these things. So, like, what's the big deal? Yeah. And I remember feeling like a conviction. Like, I remember feeling like if you want what you want, this is not the right way of doing it. And so I had to make that sacrifice, which seemed crazy to me, because, like, I could quit drinking because it's not that big a deal. I wasn't that big a fan, but I'd been smoking weed since I was like 13.
But at this point, were you also smoking it to relieve the pain?
No, the pain. Initially it was to relieve the pain,
but at this point, no.
At this point, it wasn't.
Okay.
At this point, I was just sitting at home all day, and it was just a way of passing the time. Yeah. Because I didn't have anything to do.
Yeah.
and I was just smoking, and it became like an excitement thing. It became legal, so I got a card, and I'd go to the dispensary, and I would get the strongest stuff, and it would be like, check this out, I got this strain, that strain, and like I'd be smoking with my friends and stuff.
Right.
And then I just got to the point where like I had to grapple with the fact like if I want to have a close relationship with God, that I had to be willing to sacrifice the things that were keeping me from living in the way that He wanted me to live. And then so once I quit smoking weed, that I started feeling an even stronger sense of conviction that I could feel when the Holy Spirit was speaking to me. And like I remember there's this one time that I listened to all kinds of music. And one music was a girl, and she was singing the song to like just like a guitar track, and the song was called "Sprained Ankles." And she was essentially in the song, she was talking about someone that she was trying to be involved with, but the guy didn't want to have anything to do with her. And she said, "I'm a runner, learning to stay, a marathon runner, but my ankles are sprained." And I just started thinking about the fact like I can't run anymore, and I used to be so fast paced, and I can't do anything fast. Every single thing is so deliberate. It takes so much time to do anything. And I just started bawling my eyes out like I haven't cried in so long. And this song kept playing. I just put it on repeat.
Yeah.
I'm driving. It was like the fourth time the song was going through. I'm just like trembling, crying. And then I see there's this car that was right there in the right side of my eye. It was a Jeep. And that at like the fifth time the song came on, it cut in front of me. It got in front of me, turned in front of me. It was a Jeep, and it said, "When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary sings to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be." And I just felt like this weight just drop off me. I just felt like this weight drop off me, and I just felt like somebody, it wasn't audible, but someone saying like, "It's okay."
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. And I just stopped crying, and I just felt like the Holy Spirit just spoke to me in a way that could be easily dismissed if you're trying to dismiss it. Some car just got in front of you and they had a Beatles lyrics on the back of their Jeep. But I knew that was God speaking to me.
Yeah.
I knew that was God speaking to me, saying like, okay, I understand that you're going through some stuff right now. You had to get that off your chest, but just know it's going to be okay. And from that moment, it was like so clear that I knew that the Holy Spirit was speaking to me, because I just snapped and the pain was gone. Like the emotional pain that I was going through was just gone. I was like, I know that like the same way as far as he doesn't want to violate your free will. It's like you can choose to see that. You can choose to see that as a message or not. You can just dismiss and say, "Oh, this car's got in front of you that had Beatles lyrics." But I knew in my heart and my soul that God was trying to tell me like, it's okay. You're gonna be okay. You had your crying session, but now you're okay. And then after that, it's like, I have to, cultivate this relationship. Like, I know that it's a relationship just like any other relationship. And if you just keep asking, keep asking, but you're not willing to do anything for it, you're not willing to spend time with that person, you're not willing to make time to spend with that person, you're not willing to do the things that you need to do to cultivate the relationship, to show that person you love them. You know what I'm saying? Show them like, listen, I'm willing to give this up for you. I'm willing to give that up for you. And then once you do it, you recognize that was in my best interest the whole time.
Exactly.
That was, I know it seemed like a sacrifice, but then when I have all this money I was spending on it, all this money, all this time I was spending on it, it's now mine again, And then that's when I started recognizing what they're saying as far as like, there's all these chains of depression, these chains of addiction, these chains that are keeping you from freedom. And I thought that I was being free. And I thought I could smoke whatever I wanted to. I can do it's legal. I can bring this in places and smoke it out of vape pen, and no one knows. Like, bring it to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought it was a cool thing. And I just recognized like I was stuck. I was holding myself back from all this actual freedom. This actual relationship with God that was just, it's an incredible experience.
Well, that's ultimately the verse that talks about, I think it's in Matthew, that talks about, for whoever tries to find his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for me will find it. But a lot of times we think, I don't want to lose the stuff I have. I don't want to lose relationships. I don't want to lose financial circumstances. I don't want to lose my control Yet when we finally realize, and you had your realization, it's not a lose. It's not a lose-lose.
No, sir.
It's a lose-win.
Absolutely.
Because then you realize that, like, you're walking no longer in the will that you have for yourself, but in his will that he has for you, which is immensely, I mean, the creator created you, has the blueprint for your life, for you to walk in the steps that you have, and to walk in your purpose. And when we submit to that, that's when you no longer feel like you're lost, right? That's when we ultimately feel the weight that you said you had lifted off your shoulder. That's when nobody can convince you otherwise that van wasn't meant to cross your path at that very moment.
Absolutely.
And thank God it was, because I thought you were about to go into like another accident. I was like, we don't have time for another accident report.
No, man. And I remember I was listening during worship. It was one of my Lord keeps running after me. And I started thinking, I was like, I only got one leg now.
Yeah.
You don't have to chase me. It's not going to be running anymore. And then that's when I realized it's like this losing my leg was a gift. That losing my leg was a gift. That if I wasn't in that accident, I would have continued to live the life that I lived. I would have continued to live unfulfilled, not even realizing I was unfulfilled, continue to perpetuate a lifestyle that was not meant for me, and then realizing that God loved me so much that he wanted something better for me, that he wanted me to feel the peace that he always wanted me to have. He wanted me to feel the love that I'd never felt before. And he knew, like he said, it was destined. Like I was predestined to be able to have this opportunity. It still takes choice. It still takes making the right decisions. But I remember for the first time feeling like if I lost my leg to save my soul, I'm saying that I didn't even know that I had, like it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And then getting to the point where I recognize like this is such a blessing in disguise, that every single time that I do anything, whether it be jiu-jitsu or go to the gym or just walk into the store, that people are looking at me. They're looking at me and like they're looking at me like, oh wow, you know what I'm saying? Like how you doing this? Like how do you have a smile on your face right now?
And
like,
it's on your shirt.
100%.
It's a way for people. It's a way for people to start their own conversation.
Yes, sir.
For you to share your testimony.
Yes, sir.
And that testimony has way more power than any sort of scripture can possibly have.
Yes, sir.
In the sense that not the scripture doesn't have power.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
The introduction to it.
Because when we first, if somebody asks a question like that and you hit them with, well, if you lose your life, you're not going to find it. Or if you lose your life, like that's not going to have any weight. You having your testimony opens that door for you to have that conversation, that relationship, for them to be able to see you in your life and what you've overcome and have still your joy.
That's what it is. I'm walking proof. I'm a living walking testimony.
On one leg.
I'm a living crutching testimony. You know what I'm saying? Like there is so much love. There's so much power and there's so much freedom. There's so much freedom. And like you said that you want to let go of control. It's like, it's not let go of control. It's recognizing that you don't have control over these things that you do.
You don't even have it. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not controlling this. Like I'm, distracting myself or deluding myself into thinking that I'm controlling these things, whereas it's not the case.
And I think a lot of times people think too, we think that just because we let go of control, that life is going to be on cruise control. You're still going to go through challenges.
Yes, sir.
You still have to go through your daily challenges.
Absolutely.
But it's not the destination of where we're going to that has us fixed on happiness. It's the cliche corniness of the journey, but it's who's with us on the journey. And that's the relationship with Jesus.
Yes, sir.
Because when you're in the relationship with him, the journey is the funnest part of the trip.
Man.
That's where you're built. That's where your character is built. That's where your testimony is made to be able to, when you get to the destination, you're ready for it.
Absolutely.
And that journey that you were on, that you've been on for, God, man, you have a long testimony. And it seems like God was, but the beauty about God is that even with how many times it seemed like he needed to knock at your door, As soon as you're ready, it's not like, oh, where is he? I gotta go find him. He's a mile down the road. I gotta run my. No, you turn around, he's there. He's ready. He's embracing you. It's like an instant, like, I've been here
the whole time.
Like, okay, don't say anything, just come.
It's that cliche. It's the cliche the footprints in the sand. You know what I'm saying? Like, where were you? I only saw one set of footprints. You know what I'm saying? Like, how come you left me? He's like, no, I was carrying you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just recognize like there's so many. You never seen that?
No.
It's a very famous. It's like I've seen on a plaque, and he was saying that all these times in my life I could see 2 sets of footprints when you're walking with me, and then how come every single time when life was hard I only saw 1 set of footprints? And he's like, that's when I was carrying you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, literally, oh my God. Like I don't recognize, like, and I just started seeing all these amazing blessings. Like I thank God, I pray and thank God every night for giving me the best mother that anyone could imagine. I'm saying, and that she's filled me with so much love and the ability to feel love she hardwired me to be able to receive the love that God has.
Yeah.
And being able to see the support and love of my sisters, I feel like I've been hardwired to receive love and to receive, what it's like to have someone worry about you, to have someone care about you, to have somebody want what's best for you, even though you think you know what's best. Having someone else recognizing like they didn't want me to drink, they didn't want me to smoke weed, they didn't want me to ride the motorcycle, but these are all things that I wanted to do, and I was like, what I'm going to do is ultimately going to trump what you guys want from me.
Yeah.
And then recognize like, oh, you guys are right the whole time.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot to have to lay down your pride and lay down your ego and be like, listen, I was wrong. I was wrong. And then another thing, so the lady that hit me.
Oh, yeah.
The lady that hit me, she goes and she's on trial. And the public defender and the state attorney call me. And they ask me for input, because it's not, obviously I'm not the judge, but I can, essentially put input as to what I want the sentence to be.
Yeah.
And I remember being on it was a Zoom call that was with the state attorney and the public defender, and they said, I asked where she was, and this was like probably like 4 months after the accident, and they said that she was in jail, and I was like, she's still in jail? And I'm like, no, she got out, but she was on a conditional release because she's not allowed to drink, she's not allowed to do.
Was she drunk?
Drugs. Yeah, she was drunk.
Okay, I didn't.
Yeah. She was legal. She was 0.07.
Okay.
But they said she was intoxicated.
Okay.
So like I found out that that's not an actual 0.08. It's not like a hard line.
Yeah.
Like it's just like if you're intoxicated, you can be underneath what's called the legal presumption.
Okay.
And saying so she was at 0.07.
Did she run a red light?
She ran through a green light. You know what I'm saying? Like she had
she could go.
Yeah, okay. She could go, but it wasn't a turn light.
It was just the fact that she was not all the way functioning because she had some alcohol in her.
It could have just been distracted. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it was a small bike. She may have looked down at her phone. Because it was a second. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A second. And recognizing that this happened so quickly, so I'm sitting there and I'm listening to them. They're talking about how they're asking me for my recommendation, and I asked where she was, and she said she was in jail. And they said that she tried to commit suicide, and that she was taken to the hospital, and the pills that she was taking, that she had taken too many of them, and that she tried to commit suicide, and that's why she was back in jail. So as soon as the defense attorney is like, listen, I'm telling you this very reluctantly because I don't want this to influence how you feel about the situation, because they were both, the state attorney and public defenders were both so accommodating to how I'd feel about everything.
Yeah.
And like, well, I just want to let you know this is what happened. And so as soon as I heard that, I started to feel bad for her.
Mm-hmm.
I started to feel bad for her because I had already gotten to the place where I'm feeling better. I'm feeling good. I have very little pain. And saying like every now and then, still to this day, like I'll still get like little cramps. Same thing like a Charlie horse.
Yeah.
Like it'll just happen. I just gotta breathe through it and ride it out and it'll just go away. But so I'm relatively pain free. I'm starting to get my life back together. And then this woman's brutally killed and tries to kill herself. So she tries to take herself out of this earth. And that I remember saying like, obviously I got to think about this, but I obviously want to talk to you guys again. So I told my mom that, and she was telling me how much pain that this woman's in, that she tried to kill herself, that she tried not to be here on earth anymore. And that, that she obviously, that this was an accident, that she didn't intend for this to happen, and that I should just ask them to give her rehabilitation. And I remember thinking like, yeah, I mean, you're probably right. You're probably right. Because if she tried to kill herself, she tried to give herself the death sentence.
Yeah.
Like she's in a worse place than I am. And then I remember mom telling me that I should talk to her and tell her that, you don't have to be upset about this. And I was like, oh, that's insane. I was like, listen, I can recommend them not to put her in jail, but I'm not going to talk to this lady.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So I started thinking about how angry I felt about the thought about even talking to her. And I was like, that's not right. That didn't feel right. It didn't feel right to have that kind of anger towards her. And then so I had the opportunity to go to her trial, and I got to be a witness to testify for her. And I got to go on the stand, and they asked me questions about the accident, asked me about the questions about the recovery, and I told them about, how gruesome it was and how brutal it was to get it off my chest. But I told her, I looked across the courtroom, and I told her, listen, I know that you didn't mean to do this. I know that this was an accident. I know that if you could take it back, that you would. And I know that our lives are both forever changed by that accident, but there's nothing that either one of us can do about to change this right now. So I want you to know that I'm grateful to be alive, and I forgive you, and I give you permission to forgive yourself. And I just remember, and I remember feeling like these words were not mine. I felt like they just came through me, and I just felt like this amazing sense of relief, an amazing sense of just looking at her and feeling bad for her, and just it was an unbelievable experience to have, to just get that off my chest, and then to forgive her. And then that forgiveness that gets, like I said, it felt like it came through me, like that. I gave you permission to forgive yourself. I don't know where that came from. And so I don't know where that came from, but it came out, and she heard it, and I just felt so much better about it. And I just felt like, this is amazing. this is just, the power. I'm saying the power of God, the forgiveness, and just thinking just thinking about looking at it back down, and how if I can't put myself in the position of God, but if I was looking at my son that denied all the things that I was doing for him all this time, and all the times that I failed, and all the times I fell short, and all the times I was doing stupid things, and he still forgave me. He still forgave me. He still loved me, even though I was not even believing in him. He still loved me. He was still there for me at all times. And like you said, it wasn't like I had to go burn all these sacrifices on the altar in order to invoke the presence of God. It's like he was there the entire time. He was there with me the entire time. He was just waiting for me. And then once I realized he was there the whole time, just my life is forever changed. You know what I'm saying? My life is forever changed. And now I have it's not a clear goal, because I know that I just have to move in a direction where I have to grow in my faith. I have to grow in my understanding, and I have to grow in my relationship with God. I have to continue to walk this path. I have to continue to feel the convictions of when I'm not living the life that I should. And then I feel it, and okay, I got to make the course corrections. And it's right now, the conviction that I'm walking through is that I'm with my girlfriend, I'm living with her, and before we would be intimate all the time. We would be sexually intimate all the time. And then they asked on several times, they said at church, they said ask the Holy Spirit for what's holding you back. What's holding you back, or what's plaguing you, what's stopping you from walking in the way of Christ. And I recognize, I'm looking at these Bible scriptures and saying, this is fornication, and it's fornication. And essentially, I started thinking about things differently. I started thinking about, that we're in the house of God. And, if I was going to go to her dad's house, and I'm saying, I wouldn't have sex at her dad's house. You know what I'm saying? That's very rude and disrespectful.
Right.
And I'm saying, but I'm thinking this is God's house that we're in right now. Yeah. And that's his daughter, and I just started feeling what am I gonna, I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit smoking cigarettes, I don't do anything anymore, and I can't even do that anymore. It's an act of love. I don't understand what it is. It's but it's the same thing. It's if you want to do that, you can, but you have to marry her. You have to, in order if you want to enjoy these things, that's not what that's for. That's not what this is for. It's not just for pleasure. It's not just for gratification. It's to have a family. It's to, be together and connect two flesh,
To become one.
to become one. You know what I'm saying? And it's like thinking about like that's another sense of gratification that I was getting that wasn't glorifying God, that was keeping me from walking the way that I need to. And it's hard. Like it's hard. I mean, but then when I started, I told my girlfriend afterwards, after we were intimate, that I felt bad about it.
Yeah.
And then she felt bad, like that I felt bad.
Right.
And then it's just like, all right, this is not going to happen anymore. You know what I'm saying? I'm not
Yeah.
going to feel bad about doing something, that, and that it just became something that I was convicted. And then by my conviction, she became convicted. And then it's just something like, okay, we're just going to have to wait.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to wait until we become right in the eyes of God.
Like celibacy until you get married.
And that's the next journey that I'm on right now. And I've slipped up a couple times. I'm saying I've
But that's
slipped up a
okay.
couple times.
Because I think people think when like we're on. Well, first of all, let me just say this, because you forgiving that lady, there's so much power behind that, bro. You forgave somebody who, in the eyes of many, would think she doesn't need it. She took your leg, in a sense, right?
Absolutely.
Not on purpose,
Absolutely.
but it was a way for you to find your life.
Man. And it's crazy too, because like there's people that get in accidents and they get all this money after the accident. I didn't get anything. I didn't get anything. I didn't get a dollar. I got strapped with over $500,000 in medical bills. Or $500,000 in medical bills. That's like, luckily, because of the circumstance that I wasn't working, that I got Medicaid.
Yeah.
And Medicaid's able to take care of all these things.
Wow.
So, but like I'm like if I got like $100,000 settlement and I can buy a car, I can get my own place. It's it'd be easier to soften the blow.
Yeah.
But it's like she had like the worst insurance possible, and I didn't get anything from it. She doesn't have any assets to sue her for.
Right.
And saying she has nothing. And then as the defense attorney, as I was on the stand, before I went on the stand, they said that essentially she was sexually and physically abused since she was a child. And she, had gone into substance as a way of dealing with her problems.
But bro, your forgiveness towards her was literally you were Jesus with skin on that day. No, in a sense, because like Jesus forgave us of all of our sins, past, present, and future, like Pastor Randy was saying today, right? A lot of people, many people walk through life. She already attempted suicide. She was ready to take her life.
Yes, sir.
Your forgiveness that she may have not known she needed, like, maybe put into that sentence of like, I need his forgiveness. Maybe she was in search of something. She was trying to maybe forgive herself or whatever she was going through. And I don't know if you have a relationship with her today or if you've talked to her since today, but I can imagine that the weight that you lifted off of her shoulder. Well, it was the words that came out of your mouth, but you clearly said it wasn't you.
Absolutely.
Because it was the Holy Spirit talking to her that day through you.
100%.
Gave her the ability to have her second chance at life.
Yes, sir.
Her quote unquote leg removal of her life. Her heart was changed that day because of the forgiveness that God already had put in your heart. Again, because you had an open heart the entire time. She received a piece of that day to be able to say, "Whew, I can breathe."
And exactly, you said like it's like there's no room to take credit for it, because like I said, like it was the love of my mother and how she raised me to be able to understand things in that way, to be able to forgive people, to be able the forgiveness came from her first, and then she gave it to me, and I rejected it at first, like
who herself could have a bitter heart because of her past circumstances too, with losing your stepfather.
Absolutely, and for me, because when I'm in pain, she's in pain,
right? And
she had to walk through it with me that entire time, every single time that I'm wincing in pain.
That's a mother right there,
she's
man.
She's feeling it. So like
I love your family, bro.
Man, Yeah,
I'm inviting my over for dinner just so I can talk to Chada and Mama Raf
oh my God.
and Amanda.
Amanda and my youngest sister Mariana, like they're all completely different, but they've all blessed me in so many different ways. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. And so like I just feel like the same way where like I said that those words came through me and that my mom's love came through me and mom's forgiveness came through me and that the opportunity to come to Christ, I would have never went to church.
Mm-hmm.
I would have never went to church if my ex wouldn't have rekindled her love for Jesus.
Right.
Because when we were together, she wasn't going to church.
Yeah.
And saying it was after that she found her love for Christ. And then she's like, got on fire and wanted to spread it and she knew that I needed it.
Yeah.
She knew that I needed it. Even though I was too smart for it, that I realized it's just one of those things like you realize I thought I was so smart and I see how stupid that I was.
Yeah.
And saying I see how ignorant I was. And like it's one of the things that there's a difference between not having information and ignoring information that's in front of you. And that's what I think makes you ignorant, is that you're ignoring the information.
Yeah.
And I said all this evidence about God's love, about how it's insane. Like when I went to go to law school, and I had a dorm set up that I could go to one or two different dorms. And then I asked them the weekend before, can I move my stuff in early? And I'm like, we don't have any room for you. What do you mean? I was like, I paid the deposit. They said I have one or two different rooms to choose from. Like, you're on a waiting list and it's full and you don't have a place to stay.
Jeez.
And I was like, my uncle, he had a friend in Miami, and she's like, he lives in a mansion. He works for the BBC. Like, he's barely ever gonna be there, and you can go stay with him. So I'm driving down to
Miami.
I'm driving down to Miami to go stay in a mansion that I'm gonna be staying there by myself. While I'm going to law school. And I pull into the address. It's a bad neighborhood. Oh. It's a bad neighborhood, and these are all very small houses, like smaller than any house, and they all have bars on the windows.
Yeah.
And I was like, "This is what?" It was a 2-bedroom house, and the room that I was staying in was for a weekend, and it was his son's room.
Oh my gosh.
So his son was sleeping in their bed.
Somewhere the story got distorted.
And I was sleeping in a Transformers bed. It was like a Transformer.
Oh, the actual shape of it.
It was a shape of a bumblebee Transformer. And I had to
man.
I had to figure out where I was going to stay. So then I didn't tell anybody. So I just slept in my car. I had a student pass to go to the gym, to take showers in the gym. And that's what I was doing. I was just sleeping. I was just sleeping in my car. But so what I'm saying is, when I was in University of Tampa, I had this a good friend of mine, and I saw her when I was in school. I didn't know she went to FIU, and I saw her walk past me, and she's like, "Oh, Raph." I was like, "Oh, what's up, Kendra?" And she's like, "Where are you staying?" And I was like, "I'm staying real close." And she's like, "Where are you staying?" I'm like, "It's really close." And she's like, "Well, where is it?" I'm like, it's the parking lot. She's like, "What, you stay in the parking lot?" Oh my God. She's like, "Just come stay with me." And I stayed at her house until my student aid kicked in, until I was able to go and stay and get my own place. So like, I'm just thinking there was so many blessings that I've just been incredibly blessed with my entire life. That's like, it's too, like Pastor Randy was saying today, like if I had to count the blessings, we'd be here all day.
Yeah. But I mean, you're now being a blessing. You've been poured into so much.
Yes, sir.
Now you get the chance to pour into others.
Yes, sir.
And hearing some of the stuff that you talked about in the Bible study, you are that. You are that for people that were there for you. All the times that people were there for you, you're now getting a chance to be there for them. And I want to go back to the point that you were talking about, how now having slip-ups and stuff like that. That's the journey in the relationship with God, right? A lot of times we want, okay, God, I accept you, and all of a sudden you're walking the straight and narrow path. But we're gonna fall. We're human. We have emotions, especially when we live with our significant other, right? But it's that unlimited grace.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I always equivalent a relationship with God to my earthly relationship with my kids. That's like the most purest way that I can put it to myself, is like, there's nothing that Nehemiah or Naomi can do, however many times, and at the age that they're at now, there's plenty of times that they do it over and over and over. And I'm still always there with the same amount of love, with the same amount of forgiveness for them. And it's that same relationship that God wants with us. For us to know that within him, he's just our heavenly Father, our daddy. You know, it's not the most manly way to call your father, but like it's like the purest way of putting it, because it's like I'm in submission and in complete needing of you. And like when we first transition from non-believing to believing and having a relationship, we think like, you know, how do I talk to him? And again, I relate it back to my kids. My daughter doesn't. She speaks, but she doesn't know how to speak like a lot very well. But she's trying, and eventually she's gonna get that language down.
Wow.
But more importantly, she could say something to one of you guys, and you guys not understand her. She could say that same exact babble to me, her actual father, and I'm gonna know exactly what she needs in a second.
Wow.
It's that same relationship that with God, when we first start out, to other people, we may sound like we're babbling, but to God, he knows exactly what we're doing. He knows exactly what we're asking for, what we're needing, and he's there. And in that same sense that I have a relationship with Naomi, and she needs me, she's dependent on me as her father. God wants you, all of us, to be able to go to him and say, I need you. Show me the way. Naomi still stumbles. She still falls. And guess who's right there behind her to pick her up?
Man, that's so true.
It's the same way. Same exact way.
Man.
And that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. And like you said, like I recognize that this is a gift that I've been given, and that I have a unique perspective. And like I've been training. I've been trained not only just how to combat the negative aspects, but like the whole walk of me getting into law school, and all the things you have to do in the way that you have to present, like doing mock trial and moot court, and recognizing that there's a way to present your case, present your side. And then I'm just thinking like I've been being prepared to be able to bring people to Christ that haven't known. You know what I'm saying? To speak to people that are in a room of people that are already hungry for the Lord, that are already, walking in their own way, maybe stumbling. That's one thing that I'm able to be a blessing that way. But I feel like I'm preparing. Like I feel like every single night that I read, I get closer. I get closer to being able to bring people to Christ, to bring people to the Lord, and let them know how much love there is, how much peace there is, how much the weight that's lifted off their shoulders, that they're carrying these baggages that they don't have to carry anymore. And that I just know that I've only been able to do it a little bit with my sister and a little bit with my mom, and just slowly, because it's hard. It's hard when you're used to just relying on yourself, and your anxieties and your worries take over. But when you see how much peace there is, you know what I'm saying? Like I think that because they've both had scares with cancer, and they've both had recognitions where you recognize there's some things you can't control. You don't have control over this, and like what you can control is your reactions. You can't control what you're thinking about. And I remember thinking about how I don't think you got the chance to meet my grandpa today, but he came, and he's one of the most not religious, just God empowered, Jesus empowered, spiritual person that I know. That he was kind of like my role model growing up. Like he would take me on his shoulders and introduce me to everybody, and just be so joyful that I understand his joy now. Like I understand where it comes from, and I understand that there's been seeds. The seeds have been planted in me from the very beginning, and it's been watered and it's been watered. And even though it didn't look like it was going to come out, didn't look like it was going to blossom, it's finally blossoming. It's finally coming out, and it's finally recognized that I'm going to start bearing the fruit that I was intended to deliver. And I just feel like I want to do the same thing for other people. And I know that how committed I was to how false the God was and what a delusion it was, and how people were just choosing to believe it out of their own choice. It's like, for me, it wasn't, I didn't come to Christ because I was feeling so bad about myself and I didn't know what to do. I felt like I just had so much gratitude for being here,
Yeah.
and I had somewhere to put it, and that was the beginning of my conscious relationship with Jesus. And that recognized, like, there's just so much peace that you don't have to be on your knees to come to Christ. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be brought that low. You can just find reasons to see how much there is to be grateful for,
Right.
and find, where did this come from?
Yeah.
You know, who's responsible for this? Because I didn't make this.
Right.
I didn't make this sunset. And then when they're saying, like, the breath in my lungs are yours, it's like, I'm breathing right now. I'm breathing involuntarily. I'm not choosing thinking about breathing. My blood is pumping through my heart. I'm not choosing that. It's not happening. Like, my digestions, every single thing is happening, and I have no control over it. And I have you can control your breathing. You can slow it down,
Sure.
but you can't stop it.
Right.
You can't just start breathing if you can't breathe. Like, this is just so many things that's like, you have to recognize, like, it's just a symphony of miracles. They're just being undergoing at every moment that allows you to be here. We're alive. We're not being attacked. We're not being bombed. We're not in a crazy situation even if we are, like, that's one of the things that I pray for now. It's like, I understand that these are all opportunities we can't lean on God.
Amen.
And I'm saying that we can find opportunities to strengthen our faith and choose to see this as an opportunity to lean into God and say, I don't understand why this storm is happening. And that's one of the things that I got to see when we're going through Matthew. And like, when they're in the storm, it's okay to be afraid.
Yeah.
It's okay and understandable to be afraid. But when you see that peace that Jesus has, that peace that only he can give you, it's like, he can calm the storm. He can calm the storm. You just have to learn to rely on him. You have to learn to let go. You know, so.
And I mean, everything that's manufactured at inception, that thought had everything that was created with a purpose, right?
Yes, sir.
We can look at our phone, the bottle, everything, the shoes, everything. Nothing is made without a distinct purpose, whether it's a small purpose or, it covers a multitude of things. The same way that those things have purpose. If God created us on the sixth day, and it literally says what you mentioned, he put his breath in our lungs. And he created us to be in his image, regardless of where you are in your life, whether it's impacting just your sisters, whether it's impacting however many people, the people in your household, the people outside, the people at church, you have a purpose. I'm excited to be able to know you, to be able to walk on this journey with you and see what you're going to do next, because you have a gift of being able to tell a story.
Sir.
Thankfully. I didn't have to ask. I was a genuine, spectator listening to you share your testimony. So I thank you for it. I think we could talk a lot more, but I'll end it here so we can have another podcast one day where we can sit down and talk. But man, thank you. This is going to be a hard one to follow up.
Ah, man. But it's all part of the same journey. And like, just real quick, like, I remember that when I had that moment of expressing that, when we were talking about Matthew, and they're saying that essentially you have to be able to put down the things that are bothering you, the things that are concerning you. Whether it was the man had to go to his father's funeral.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's certain things that could be in the way of you, and that I expressed that what I'm going through, that I feel like I have to give up my carnal desires, my desires for the flesh. And then Phil said, let's pray over him.
Yeah.
And then he chose you to pray over me. And that the words that you spoke, like you said, because it came through you, the Spirit spoke through you, and it spoke through you and right into me. And that I just felt like, like you said, from the minute that I walked in, like, there's a connection, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there was a connection, and I'm grateful for, this is an example. This is an example of why I'm here too. It's like, we have this chance to have this conversation. Someone may hear this conversation. Someone may think, well, man, this happened to me, that happened to me, and I'm mad at God about this. I don't believe in God for this. It's like, okay, but what if?
Yeah.
And I think that this is just like the beginning. Like, this is like one of the first opportunities that I've got to share my story, to someone
Yeah.
that, you know, has the ability to let other people see it and then to move them. And that I want to do the same thing. As the seed was planted in me, I want to drop that seed everywhere else.
We're both in the beginning of a journey that we do not know where it's going to go.
That's right. That's right. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity too. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I feel like there's a reason why I'm here.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? And I thank you for that chance to give me this opportunity to share it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to end it like this because one thing that I found freedom in years ago, I kept hearing sermons playing while I was doing some work in an apartment. And I want to end every episode like this, and it's saying a specific thing. But I'm going to do it because of this reason. Because when I kept hearing a specific pastor share, like, do a message, and I was listening on Spotify or on YouTube, I can't remember. He kept ending his sermon saying the same exact thing of like, I used to be this, this, and this. I was like, man, why does he keep saying that? And eventually, like, it triggered me to that the repetitiveness of him saying it was something that I was able to finally connect to because he said it so many times. So I every time I do a video, I always end it with saying that God loves you. He wants a relationship with you. I'm talking specifically to you, but also anybody who's listening. And he wants you to live a life on purpose, for purpose.
Amen.
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 Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Excited, man.
How long was that?
Long enough to need to use the bathroom like an hour ago.
Yeah, right after.
How long was it? 2:40.
Whoa.